Okay, we are live.
In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. The agenda is in front of you. Councillor Ferguson? Okay, any discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. So we will move forward with our public hearing for bylaw number 09-2023. So I will declare the public hearing open and state that the hearing is held pursuant to sections 230, 606, and 692 of the Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended. The purpose of bylaw 09-2023 is to amend section 3 of the land use bylaw number 22-2007 by adding a definition for industrial laundry and industrial support and amending the definition for laundromat and dry cleaning establishment and amending sections 102, 101-2, 103-2, 104-2, and 104A2 by adding industrial laundry and industrial support as permitted uses in M1 light industrial district, M2 general industrial district, M3A special airport industrial district, M4 small holdings industrial district, and BI business industrial district. The notice of the hearing was given in writing to the applicant, the assessed landowner or owners and adjoining landowners, and the planning and development officer. The notice of the hearing was advertised on the town's website from May 17th, 2023 to June 6th, 2023. I'll make note that any presentations are to be brief and to the point, and the order for hearing presentations will be the planning and development officer, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, and any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard. Anyone giving presentations are to state their name and address before the microphone. And with that,
take it away. Okay. Your worship and members of council, the purpose of this report is to hold the required public hearing and consider second and third reading for bylaw 09-2023. The applicant is Spring Fresh Mat and Linen Rentals. The proposal is to amend the land use bylaw to add in a definition for industrial laundry. The Municipal Planning Commission reviewed this application at its meeting last night and have indicated their support for the bylaw. To date, we have received no verbal or written comments with respect to the proposed bylaw. So a little bit of history. Spring Fresh recently purchased Allery Cleaners and began operating their business from 301 Caribou Trail Northwest. The services provided by Spring Fresh include laundering and or cleaning of mats, rugs, and coveralls. This use was not listed in the M1 light industrial district where the business was operating. Further, as the business encompasses services provided to commercial and industrial businesses and does not encompass the cleaning of household goods and personal apparel, a land use bylaw amendment was required to both define the use and add it to the M1 district. The planning department conducted research on several other land use bylaws for other municipalities, looking for how they defined the use. We put together a definition that was sort of a combination of a couple. This definition was reviewed and approved by the applicant. So industrial laundry means a development that provides cleaning services for the washing of clothing, i.e. work apparel such as coveralls, gloves, etc., cloth and or other fabrics, commercial, industrial, or institutional bedding, etc., carpet and rugs used in industrial, commercial, and institutional operations, and does not include the cleaning of personal clothing or household goods. Laundromat and dry cleaning or dry cleaning establishment is a separate use. The planning department was also recommending, we do have a definition for laundromat and dry cleaning establishment, which I've included. We're recommending a small change to that definition, so it would be replaced in the land use bylaw just to make the use a little more clear. So the new definition would be laundromat or dry cleaning establishment means a use for the laundering or cleaning of personal clothing and household goods such as draperies, and is a service provided to the general public on a pay-per-use basis. Industrial laundry is a separate use. We are also recommending that industrial laundry be added as a permitted use to the M1 light industrial, M2 general industrial, M3A special airport industrial, M4 small holdings industrial, and the BI business industrial districts. While we were conducting the research, we also came across a definition for industrial support, which I've included here. This is not part of the application put forward by the applicant, but is something that we saw could be used quite often to in support of quite a few of the different businesses that are applying for occupying space business permits. So it's a better fit than some of the definitions we have in the land use bylaw right now. So we added that definition in and are also recommending that use, industrial support, be added as a permitted use to the M1, M2, M3A, and M4 and BI districts. And that's it for now. Any questions?
Councillor Adams.
Got a number of questions actually, but first, why are you wanting to add this industrial or the laundry piece and even the industrial support piece into the M3, M3A, M4, and BI? Doesn't seem to fit into any of those. Why would
Well,
we
they're
take
all-
up spots that are zoned for airports and for their kind of businesses and opening it up to the general public?
We did not put it in the airport district. We put it in the special airport, which is all along H Street backing. So it's adjacent to.
Okay,
And the uses in those lands are all general light industrial uses anyway. None of them have, I don't think there's any there other than the aircraft hangar, rotary aircraft hangar that have any relation to the airport.
so then why
At all.
are you removing the M3A from that then and rezoning for what it should be?
We could look at that. The M3A was there to initially was there to allow the airport the potential ability to expand. And all the intent was that any developments in the M3A would be temporary in nature or movable, so that at some point, if the airport was interested in purchasing the land, so they could be annexed and those developments would move off. I don't know that will ever happen, but the M3A is a zoning that has existed within the land use bylaw forever. But the reality is the uses that occur there, almost none of them have any airport support type use attached to them. It's all light industrial.
So adding
And
this
then
was
business industrial?
Sorry?
Why would-
Well, in business industrial is just like it's a cross section really between, it's like a bridge district between commercial and industrial. It's sort of that light combination. So a laundromat service, in my opinion, fits well in either of those. So that's why we proposed them in all of the industrial districts with the exception of the airport, because we felt that they wouldn't, it doesn't really create a conflict. It's a non-issue.
So it was to be as flexible as possible.
Yeah.
Location wise.
Yeah.
So that we don't have to come back and do this again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't know if industrial laundromat, because that can be quite different from what's going in there now, which is basically a drop-off zone. It could go into quite a heavy
Yeah, but M1, if you
facility,
think
but
about,
put that in a business industrial where there's office space and people working, general public working on a regular basis, doesn't really make sense to me.
I questioned that one too.
okay, well, it was just a suggestion. I mean, if council's not liking that, it doesn't have to be included in the districts where it's added. I didn't see the issue with it, but if you don't want it there, it certainly doesn't have to go in there.
For my clarification, forgive my ignorance, let me get to the question. What's the difference between your business industrial district and your general industrial district?
Well, there's
General.
there's the very little difference between M1 and M2 light and general industrial, but the BI is supposed to be like that combination of commercial industrial. So it's not as intense, the use. So you'll see something like a surveyor office is a really good example of one that would fit in. You could either put it in a light industrial, you could put it in a commercial, or you can put it in a BI. It kind of fits in any of those three because there's the, they have equipment and things like that they're storing on site that may be more suitable to industrial. But it's meant to be this bridging between zoning, between commercial and light industrial.
Councilor Randall?
my interpretation of business industrial was, yeah, like a survey is a good example, but more like oil field office instead of like the actual oil field equipment and things. So I don't really think that this should go in the BI. And I questioned about the M3 and M4, because in my opinion, this is a light industrial business. And I don't know. Most of the time, I'm not usually a stickler for spot zoning, but I almost think that one would be in putting this use in the heavier zonings, like the heavy,
M2.
yeah, M2, thank you.
So you like it in the M2 or you
No,
don't like
I
it in the
don't.
M2?
No.
Okay,
No, I think M1 should be fine. And for this applicant, I think the building is in M1 too, so I think that's totally fine, but I question why we're putting it in the heavier uses.
okay.
I just had a question for Steve. So it's just too much activity going in there? That would be the reasoning behind it? It just makes it too busy
For what?
to change the zoning to that? It's just too much?
Well, the reason I was questioning the M3A one was I thought we were, but like you say, it's used for other things right now. But I thought the purpose of the M3A was to be support services to the airport. And then I thought the airport had a future, maybe Bryce, you can comment on this more, had a future use coming on the south side of the airport where they were looking at expansion. Not expanding the airport, but like the service, what do you call those? Not taxiways, but hangars and stuff like that.
I know at one point the airport was looking at the south side by Cal Tire,
Mhm.
adding some there, but as long as, you know, as long as I've been here, there's never been any talk of expansion on that end in those M3A lots that are backing onto the airport.
But then in something like this, I do honestly think that we need to look further down the road than 10 years. I think we need to be looking 50 years down the road and what we're going to want to do. And that's the purpose of our zoning structure, is to keep that framework able to work how it is. So I'd rather not open it up to all sorts of businesses.
Be like a safeguard there for
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Thank you.
And then, can I keep going?
Yes, yes.
The industrial support one, what does that cover that we're not covering now in our piece?
Well, if you look at the land use bylaw, there's definitions for light industrial equipment repair. There might be one for general contractor, but there's nothing in there for this industrial support business, like any of the I'm just trying to think that PCM Lift Solutions is one that just came in that is working out of Murray Broadhead's building in the M1. There isn't a definition in the bylaw that really fits under. Like when you look at the various types of, and when we issue a development permit, we have to pick a use that's there. It's not just something that, you know, is fairly closely related. You need to capture what's actually happening in the business with the use. And there's some gaps in the definitions between, you know, light and heavy equipment repair and general contracted and limited contracted services. And this definition would kind of fill some of those gaps. So when I got somebody coming in and applying, and you know that some of their business is some of it's equipment repair, but a lot of what they're doing is maybe oil field service, or they're providing support services. There isn't a definition that exists that really fits well into. So that's what this was intended to do, is to better define the use that's coming in so that it makes sense. Like when I'm adding the definition to their permit, it's just like, sometimes you might look at it and go, well, geez, that doesn't sound like anything like what I'm doing. But that's the definition we've put on it, because the definitions we have are too limited.
But
They're
since
not
we're
broad
taking
enough
those
and expanse.
definitions and we're putting it across all the zones, all it is then is keeping the paperwork clean. It's not actually to do anything different, because we're putting it on everything.
Well, to be frank, the reality with our industrial areas is we got M1 and M2, and there's really almost no difference between no, there isn't. And I mean, and that isn't something that just transpired. That's been something that's been going on for, 30 plus years. And so we don't really have areas that act as general industrial versus light. and light versus in general industrial, that there really just is a mix of everything. We could probably very easily rewrite the bylaw and go down to 2 industrial land use districts that would suffice. And because there's no discerning difference anymore between any of those land use districts other than the airport.
That's kind of what it's been now.
Yeah, no, and it's true. Yeah, that's exactly what's happened, but it's something that has evolved over, 30 years kind of thing.
And maybe we'll go that way when our.
And quite likely we will, is we'd pare that down and have 1 or 2 districts rather than so many.
Counselor Adams.
Okay, my other one was for the definition of the industrial laundry. So that means they're not allowed to do any business that relates to general
Household,
public.
that's right,
So If
household.
I am Steve Adams and I want to bring my coveralls that I use in my garage, I can't take them there to get them cleaned.
No,
it
not
has-
technically, no.
Technically, it has to come from
Yeah.
XYZ company.
He did indicate to me, just so you're aware, I spoke to the applicant yesterday and he said less than 1% of their business is the general public dropping off household items for dry cleaning or cleaning of any kind. They don't provide the service here anyway. They truck it all to Grand Prairie and bring it back. He said about 95% of their business comes from their delivery trucks going and picking up and bringing back to site, and about 4% is industrial use companies dropping off stuff that needs to be cleaned. So to say that there's absolutely no household cleaning going on is not accurate, but it's very, very small by comparison. 1% is what he's telling me.
So how does that work in the future if it's going to be, like, say, Joe Blow opens up a laundromat downtown where it's for household use? Who then polices what is going where, or can it even be
I
policed?
mean, I don't, typically in the planning department, we're only policing if we get a complaint. So that would be sort of how we deal with it, right? If it became an issue that the number of clients that he's taking household cleaning, then we'd have to tell them, you don't have approval for that, doesn't fit under the definition of your business. So it's not a service you can provide. We
Okay.
deal with it that way.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry, Lorraine, just one point of clarification there. So if they are shipping out their personal dry cleaning, is this definition only applying to the activities that are actually taking place in the facility itself?
Yes,
Right, so if they're shipping it out, basically they're just a collection point. They're not actually
That's right.
performing personal household laundry services in that location at 0% because they're shipping out everything that they do get.
that's right.
Correct, right?
I think they are, but you know what? I'm not 100% sure what they're doing there. It sounded like they ship their mats for cleaning elsewhere, but maybe it sounded like they are doing their coveralls and work gloves and that on site. But don't quote me on that.
So if we want to see a change in this, is it an amendment that we do,
Mhm.
or what? Or
Well, you could,
You can,
you defeat
if
this?
it's a even if it is a substantive change, if it's a non-substantive change, you can make the change to the bylaw right now and give it, on second reading and then pass it with that amendment on third reading.
That happens after the remainder of the hearing presentation.
Yeah, when we go
have
back
held the
into-
public Hearing and then we
Yeah.
go back.
No,
into-
yeah, I was just wondering how that
Yeah.
works.
So
Thanks.
we'll have the opportunity to amend or make friendly recommendations during our report section. Yes,
No such thing as friendly.
no such thing as friendly amendments. Any further comments for Lori? Okay, thank you, Lori. I will now call forward anyone who is in favor of the bylaw that wishes to speak. All right, is there anyone that is opposed to the bylaw that wishes to speak? And is there any person deemed to be affected who wishes to be heard? As there is none, we will declare the public hearing to be closed. And continuing on, Lori, I believe it's still you.
why'd you clean up?
I'm back.
You're back for the land use bylaw amendment.
So are we back at number 9 or we're on to?
Page 3,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same one.
same one,
Okay,
number 9, yeah.
All right, so I guess my recommendation was to pass it as it was presented. And I didn't have really anything else at this point.
Counselor Adams.
I would like to see motion or whatever to amend to remove industrial zones M2, M3A, M4 and BI. So that we're only putting it into M1. And then industrial support, I guess that'd be a separate one. Sorry, I'll stop there.
So for the motion, if that's the motion on the floor, you would just change it so that it,
Because it doesn't mention the uses in,
So what we would do is, in the
Just-
motion, it doesn't. So you would advise which ones, which sections it's going to come out.
just go with section, you would just keep section 100.
Yeah,
And,
so.
and not say 101 to 104A.
Yep. So number 3 in the bylaw, which is, it would say that sections 102 be amended by adding industrial laundry and industrial support. And none of the other districts. Is that what you're
That's what I'd
thinking?
like to say.
Yeah, okay.
You can make a motion.
I'm actually okay with the supports in all 4.
No. I don't think the supports should be in 3A at the most. I'm okay with M1, M2, business industrial. I guess, like you said, if it doesn't fit all the clarification for like engineering or for surveying or something like that, then okay, I get that for the business industrial, but I don't understand why we would have oil field and forestry supports in M3A.
Because Lori said it fills the gaps for those uses.
But the point is not for us to fit the zoning around what's there. Ours is to fit the zoning to what it should be, not. And M3A is meant for airport and when forestry itself is there, it's got its own institutional zoning, so we're good anyways. And M3A is support for the airport.
It's meant to be support for the airport, but in reality, that ship has largely sailed. I mean,
But then we
40
should
years
be-
ago, we should have done something about it. But
Fair enough, then we should
unfortunately,
be removing M3A.
something that we can do.
We can definitely look at that when we're doing our land use bylaw rewrite this fall. No problem.
So in which case, we don't add it to M3A anyway.
Or we don't
Because
worry
we're
about it.
removing
Deal
M3A.
with it
So
later.
if you're taking M3 out on that north side
We
of
may.
the industrial
remove it.
area. And there's only gonna be what, 2 spots there, I think that would actually qualify under M3A that are existing uses. Ish,
Yeah, 1 or 2.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then you change the others to M1 and M3A stays how it should, which is support, and then we're done. We don't put this in M3A. That's my opinion.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this?
If we change the parameters of this too much, do we need to go back out for first, second and third?
No, you don't. I mean, if there's substantive changes to bylaws, you should go back out and advertise for the public what you're doing, but these are not.
Additions, they're removals, right?
Even removals is like, if they're substantive enough to change the intent, you sometimes should go back out so the public is aware.
Yeah,
But I don't
concept
think
is-
these are that crucial. It gets the use in the M1, which is what the applicants applied for.
Yeah, if we removed M1 out of it, I'd say that'd be substantive, but I'm fine with it being an M1. A light industrial to me fits. The rest I don't think fits.
And then, so what's our motions going to look like?
We still just do this.
So then the motion, let me look
Section
at here.
3,
Well, it
100.
depends on what you're doing with the M3, or sorry, with the industrial support. So we would say amend sections 3, 100, 10, and I would remove some of those sections. Is
So
what I would do.
101, 103, 104 and 104A would come out.
If that's for it, but we've got them lumped.
What
What do you want to do with the industrial support?
I'm okay with them in all 4. Once you explained it to me, I had concerns before, but
Mhm.
once you explained that it filled some of those gaps that you struggle with. That made sense to me.
I'm fine with it in all 4 as well.
I'm gonna get voted on that one. I'm making my first amendment then before we get to.
Steve, if you make the whole motion, you might get your way if we just vote on it.
That's right. Well, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I'm just cutting it short. I'm going, move that bylaw 092023 to amend sections 3 and 100 of the land use bylaw 22-2007 by adding definitions as listed uses for industrial laundry, laundromat and dry cleaning establishment, industrial support receives second reading. So that's only for those.
You
Just
so you
for
kept
M1.
light industrial district
Kept
and
M1.
removed the rest.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Okay, call to question those in favor. Those opposed. And that is carried. Okay. Counselor Hughes,
I guess I can, I will move that bylaw number 09-2023 to amend section 3-100 of the land use bylaw number 22-2007 by adding definitions and listed uses for industrial laundry, laundromat and dry cleaning establishment, and industrial support receives third reading.
any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you, Lori. You're still on deck.
All right, land use bylaw number 13. So this purpose of this report is for council to give bylaw 13/2023 first reading and schedule the required public hearing for July 4th. The applicant is Métis Urban Housing and the address is 305th Street Northeast, Plan 897 NY Block 12 Lot 19. What they want to do is rezone the property from R2 medium density residential district to R3 high density residential district to facilitate the development of a fourplex on this lot. This is the parcel that was recently rezoned from R1 to R2. And as this is first reading, there's no discussion on the application. I'm just looking for the motion.
Counselor Ferguson,
I'll make a motion. Move that bylaw number 13/2023 amends the land use district map of the land use bylaw number 22/2007 by redistricting plan 897 and Y block 12 lot 19 from R2 medium density residential district to R3 high density residential district, receives first reading and the required public hearing be scheduled for July 4th, 2023.
call to question those in favor. And that is carried.
All right. And last report I have for you is a subdivision endorsement and registration time extension. So the purpose is for council to consider a time extension, for subdivision application 601119 sub 0122. The applicant is Dwayne Edmondson from On-Site Surveys. The owners of the land are the town of Slave Lake. And it is the lands within the northwest quarter 173.6 west of the 5 and the southwest 173.6 west of the 5, which is Big Fish Bay RV Resort. What happened was there was a subdivision application that went before the Municipal Planning Commission and approved the subdivision to create an environmental reserve lot adjacent to the shores of Lesser Slave River within the Big Fish Bay RV Park. The surveyor has been having difficulty working with Alberta Environment and Protection with respect to an approved definition for the bank of the lake. And so there's been some delays in getting this subdivision registered. They had 1 year from the date the subdivision was approved, which was May 3rd, 2022, to either register the subdivision or apply for an extension. The surveyor was meeting with Alberta Environment and Protection the week of May 22nd to 26th, and feels that they will be able to sort out the issue with respect to the definition of the bank. So he's looking for a extension for registration of this subdivision. And so we're recommending an extension to December 31st, 2023, which should give him time to iron out the issue as well. There's been a delay at Alberta Land Titles with respect to registrations. So I'm hoping that this 7-month extension will afford him all the time they need. I did want to indicate that it's not uncommon for surveyors to experience difficulties when they're trying to register plans with respect to the definition of the bed and shore or the stream bed or the slope when it deals with the body of water. So what's happening is not uncommon. And we're just looking for that subdivision time extension.
Counselor Moallem.
Am I working? I'll make a motion to move that council approve a time extension for registration of subdivision 6011.19. What is that? Dash SUB 01-2 or 0.22 to December 31st, 2023.
There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Counselor Adams.
Does this impact anything else as far as this goes with development or anything else?
No.
Thanks.
Okay, call to question those in favor. And that is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Yep.
Roland.
Good evening, your worship and members of council. The purpose of this report is to get council approval to switch over existing streetlights from a non-invested rate to an invested rate from ATCO. ATCO was set to be here tonight, actually in prior meetings. However, they were unable to attend because they're just still dealing with the fires in the area. But I will do my best to fill in any information that they might have wanted to present. So historically, the town of Slave Lake streetlights have had a mixture of invested streetlights and non-invested streetlights throughout our community. Past practices saw the town sticking mainly with the non-invested streetlight route and absorbing the costs of replacing streetlights, generally between $0 to $30,000 on an annual basis. ATCO has made prior proposals to the town, which have been rejected by council. ATCO has historically informed the town when streetlights are to be replaced. However, sometimes this information is known during the budget process, giving the town adequate time to budget for these costs. But often we are not informed and are kind of given the heads up throughout the year and have to review our funding options when these items come in. ATCO is proposing that the town switch all its remaining streetlights from a non-investment rate to an investment rate. Through this process, ATCO is willing to provide approximately $686,000 to the town in investment funding for this. All of the streetlights, regardless of what plan that we are on, are owned by ATCO. So the town does not own any streetlights in town. We're not the owner. ATCO is. We just get to opt between two types of payment options, which are the non-investment and investment rates. There are 818 streetlights within the town of Slave Lake. 677 of these lights are on the non-invested rate. These rates are regulated by the AUC, or the Alberta Utilities Commission, and are updated yearly. Different watts of lights, as well as different fixtures, can be charged varying rates under the two-rate structure. For our street lights, we have a wide varying mixture of lights ranging from 38 watts to 400 watts. For the non-investment rate, so this rate is much lower than the investment rate option. Under this rate, the municipality is responsible for the full installation costs of a street light, as well as the full costs of replacing the street light. ATCO is only responsible for the regular maintenance of a street light. For the investment rate, the municipality is also responsible for the full installation cost of a streetlight. However, ATCO is responsible for the full cost of replacing the streetlight along with the associated maintenance costs. And this is the route that we want to take. And so for the town, just to differentiate between the two, for the full cost of the installation, this really applies in our case if we were to add streetlights to a section. So, if there's a new subdivision or we want to add streetlights to downtown, both options are similar. It's just we have to pay the upfront cost to add a new light, and at the end of the cycle, we'll have paid for it, and ATCO is going to take care of all the maintenance. There's an average of around $19 per month per light fixture difference between the non-investment and investment rate option, or approximately $160,000 in additional costs on an annual basis between the two options. The lifespan on a major portion of our streetlights is nearing the end of its cycle. The average cost to replace a light on the non-investment option is approximately $6,000. The cost to replace all of the 677 streetlights would be approximately $4.1 million. ATCO estimates that 5% of the lights are expected to fail within a short amount of time, and that the 32% of the street, and 32% of the streetlights are over the age of 30, which is past their life cycle. So this means that roughly 250 streetlights are in need of replacing in a very short order of time, which is approximately $1.5 million that we could expect to see within the next 6 months to a year. The streetlight reserve has a balance of $118,000 in it. There's insufficient reserve capacity to be able to absorb these costs within this reserve. Now, we do have 1.3 million in our future expenditure reserve that we could use towards this. However, it would severely drain future funding options from this reserve pool. As the streetlight itself is owned by ATCO, a debenture to pay for this is not really an option. The town could look into taking out an operating line of credit to pay for the immediate costs. However, these types of loans must be paid within a 3-year timeline. In addition to changing rates, ATCO has also phased out the use of the high pressure sodium lights and is switching everything over to the LED lights. These lights are supposed to operate more efficiently and should provide the town with some variable electric usage savings on an annual basis. Selecting to go with ATCO's proposal will alleviate upcoming costs as well as allow us to put away the ATCO investment into the streetlight reserve to offset annual increases in the expenditure over a greater time span. This would allow the annual increases in taxes to be required to absorb these additional costs to be adjusted over a longer period in upcoming budgets. So the two options we have is we can accept the proposal from ATCO, or we could decline the proposal to ATCO. Administration is recommending that council approve ATCO's streetlight proposal to switch from a non-investment rate to an invested rate and place the investment funds provided by ATCO into the streetlight reserve. With that, is there any questions?
Council Brandel.
Okay, a couple questions. So I've been hearing about this streetlight thing for 10 years since I've been on council. And we've always kind of been pushing ATCO off because to use Tyler's analogy, it was so Julie buys a car, but ATCO is willing to pay the gas and do all the maintenance for it for me. So the best time to actually trade that car in would be just before it dies, so I could still get something for it. So using that analogy, are we there at that point in the streetlights? Because we've been hearing for this long that they're just about at that age, But, you know, I see it all the time in real estate where a furnace, you know, the average life cycle of a furnace is 17 to 25 years old, but I replaced mine in my house when it was 35 years old. So is that the case? Like, are we really spending a lot more money in maintenance to maintain them?
Like, it depends on the year, right? I think the challenge that we've had with ATCO, or have I had with ATCO, is just kind of the random nature of when they get their assessments done. I know they come in here and
Yeah,
they do
and
a
they do the
survey and then they
assessments
come
and
in
tell
and
us.
say something. And I know one year it was, we budgeted 80 grand and then they pushed that off. That eventually did happen, but it was like a year and a half after the original proposal. But I mean,
Yeah,
we've been
'cause-
pushing to get the information on the age of the lights. And so they have provided that. So 30 years is getting up there. And in addition to the actual lights themselves, so the high pressure sodium, which is the vast majority of our lights. So regardless of what happens, those are no longer supported. So once HPS goes down, it gets switched out to the LEDs. So this would, we have these 30-year-old lights that are no longer going to be, you know, replaced with the HPS anyways. And then this, I think, would ease the burden on ATCO to be able to come in here and do a light revamp and switch everything over to the LEDs and kind of move the funding option that way.
Yeah, because I mean, as for the LEDs, like, I don't know if there's any real savings for them anyway, because every time they replace one, they're going to put LEDs in them anyway. So eventually we're going to get there. So I don't think that that's really a savings to taxpayers.
Could be, it'd just be if they come to us tomorrow, like, we don't have an option to say really no, like, they're their lights and it's our responsibility to fix them. So if, you know, 215 fail, we either have 215 streetlights that don't work, or ATCO comes in, fixes them all, and then they'll just send us the bill and and be stuck with, this large bill that
Yeah.
we might have challenges
I
paying.
don't know about that. So any idea if we were to do this, I'm not really in favor for this. I never have been. So if we do take this $686,000 or whatever, what are we planning to do with that money?
So that my plan was to put it in the streetlight reserve and use that funding to offset budget, we can slowly incrementally increase the budget to absorb the costs over a longer period. So we get like a $700,000 cushion, roughly 40 years to adjust the budget to be able to absorb the higher costs in the long run. And
Okay.
ideally, under, had we done this 40 years ago, ideally the cost should be exactly the same because the town should have been putting money away into a streetlight reserve to replace lights on a basis. So it's kind of a cost that we haven't been paying for the life cycle of these streetlights for quite a while. So.
Yeah. So back to my question about the maintenance, like has the maintenance been steadily going up in the last?
Hey, it's up and down, right? It depends on their maintenance schedule. So some years we see like $120,000, other years it's like I said, zero. It can be 30,000. It's never been.
So it's hard to use that, like using that car analogy again, like I'm going to trade my car in if it starts nickel and diming me and it starts to be a clunker. But that's my question. Like, are these clunkers? Like, yeah, they're old, but if it's not broke, do we fix them?
So yeah, I'm not the streetlight expert by any stretch, but this is ATCO coming to us saying, they provide, it's taken quite a while to get all this information that they provided it to us and said, hey, like, look, I thought it was 22 years. They're saying 30 years. And they do an audit or whatever of their stuff. So I can't say, no, these are only, these are all in good working condition. They're coming to us saying these are not in good working condition. These are going to fail. This is what our audit of the streetlights in your town have come back with. This is the report we got. Here's what the future looks like for you guys.
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel that it's like, okay, I get maintenance for sure. But I almost feel, and no disrespect to ATCO by any means, but I almost feel that it's them offloading them onto the municipality and it's going to be at the taxpayers' expense. And I don't know, it's just a lot of money to do all at once. And we're only getting $686,000 for it. So I don't know.
Jeff wants to weigh in.
Yeah, so just a couple of things to add. One element that Roland didn't touch on is, and an element part of this deal is, or an enhancement to us is called a Schedule C. So it's usually what'll happen is when a municipality, and according to ATCO, we're one of the last municipalities to make this decision. The vast majority have all moved to an invested model. So we are definitely not first to the table or even half. In their discussions or my discussions with their management, we're one of the last few that haven't chosen to do this yet. But the Schedule C is basically an element that's built into our agreement with ATCO, and it sets specific measurable parameters for service. So there's a service expectation that comes with this model as well, meaning if there's a light that's out, they'll have 2 weeks or 1 week to have it addressed. Anything past that time period, they actually start to pay us money for not meeting that threshold. So there's a service component that comes with going into this model with ATCO, where we're basically, it's like you're buying extended warranty, essentially. You're saying you're going to put a fee up. They're going to look after everything as it relates to those lights, including the switching of the bulbs to the LED version or whatever the case. So those are just, a couple elements to put in there in terms of for consideration. The biggest concern for us is that it has the potential to be a significant liability that we don't have funded. And so from my perspective or my position, it's kind of like you're playing Russian roulette all the time, wondering when is this going to snap and when are we not necessarily going to fund? You could utilize that money however you wish, like Roland's suggesting, you could use it to offset those changes over the next, those increases over the next 4 years, or you could use it to fund something else or another initiative, whatever the case may be. But our concern is that if you had a $300,000 year in ATCO repairs, you're going to have a difficult time finding where that funding is going to come from to cover it.
Okay, one more question for Roland. So in the last 10 years of budget cycle, I've never been asked to put any money away for this as a rainy day, because we've been hearing about it for a long time. So why haven't we been doing that, if that's the case?
Generally, it's kind of been the low man on the totem pole. So when we're trying to figure out what's kind of the most important thing, that's never been high on the list.
Right,
It's-
exactly.
Until now.
For increasing reserves.
I want to talk.
No,
Been on the radar. I just don't think it's ever really made the cut to be, have an increase into the reserve there.
yeah, that's why it was rejected last time.
Yeah, I think I would have a little bit more support for this motion if I knew over the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, if we knew that those maintenance costs were slowly increasing. I think that would support my decision a little bit more, I think.
Councillor Gramlich.
Yeah, so follow up on what Ali and Julie said. I haven't been around this table for 10 years, but I've been here for 6, and for at least the last 4, we've had somewhat similar proposals. And at one point it was like a take it or leave it. This is your last chance at this funding. Well, it's 4 years later and they're still willing to give us the funding, and it might even be more now if my memory is correct. But
I thought it was only a couple $100,000.
yeah, I think it increased now, but I don't, and I do know that we're gonna need to replace them at some point, but I'm thinking like Julie and how we've always thought, it's like, if that point was 6 years ago when I started on council, it would have been a big waste of money. And how do we know we don't have another 6 years where it's not a big waste of money? So I'd let these fizzle out and replace them as is. And I think there's a little bit of fear mongering that they're all gonna go out tomorrow and we're gonna be stuck with this giant bill that we can't control. So.
Well, I would just, that's why, it'd be nice to have ATCO here, so I don't want to weigh all that there, but like get the impression that, yeah, okay, because I've had the same kind of concern, we've been hearing this for a while, but the program that they're running right now with this like investment thing, I believe this is the last year, so this is.
I've heard that
Like-
for a while.
I
I think it
you
would
take
be-
the gamble not to do it, but
I think ATCO, like, it's not your job to deliver their sales pitch, Roland. It would be nice if someone showed up so they could answer our questions and not dump it on administration to try to fight their battles for them.
Should we maybe table it until we can get somebody? from
we
the-
can, yeah, definitely do that. I just know that I'm not around in July, so definitely want to get you the information before, because I don't know what their timetables is as well.
It's 6 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Come on up.
Councillor Ferguson.
So given that this has such a large budgetary impact, I'd like to see this brought back as part of our budget deliberations so we can see the whole picture. I'm not a fan of making decisions which have such a large impact on our operational budget when we don't have the whole picture. We were already looking at an approximate 5.66% tax increase for 2024. And if we were to absorb this all at once, we're looking at close to a 7.3% tax increase next year. So my vote is to bring it back at budget time. We have the whole picture and we can have that discussion then.
Councillor Adams.
Thinking along the same lines as Bryce, but a couple of things I just wanted to clarify then, correct me if I'm wrong on this. We're looking at an increase of almost $200,000 a year. Or $160,000 a year just in cost of power if we do this job. If we.
Not
go
even-
with
not the
what
cost
ATCO
of
wants to
power.
do,
Cost of power is a separate
Well,
thing. So
whatever,
what these
cost of
rates are,
contract.
yeah,
Is because that's 19, we're talking $19 per light over 677 lights per month, yeah. And so that works out to about 155,000, 154,000 increase that we got to absorb.
correct.
And
If-
if for us to replace the failures, even if they fail at the rate they're saying they're gonna fail at, I think that's an aggressive number to say, we're gonna lose 32 lights per year. I don't know, in the last 10 years, have we lost 32 lights?
No, it's 32%. It's not 32.
No,
lights.
it was not 32%.
32% or over 30 years.
Yeah, over 30 years, but they're calling a failure rate of 5%. Which conveniently
lights.
works out to 32 lights
You're right.
or 33 lights.
The math works.
So
It works.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a
Maybe it-
difference to them. I know in discussions, they,
Yeah, they're
when they
totally-
do their assessment, they'll look and see if they're, so they might not have technically, like the light might not have turned off. Whether they're calling that a failure or not. But the posts might not be sturdy enough anymore. It might might not meet certain safety parameters, right? Meaning it might need to
I
be
get that,
replaced or
yeah.
addressed. So I don't know if the percentage of the failure rate is applying to like overall they all fail, or if it's just, like, I'd hate to underestimate the problem or the potential problem, or if it's just 5% of the lights just don't work anymore. I mean, we could bring that back to your more clarity as to
Yeah,
what
that's
the
what we
risk
can
is.
clarify. Well, what my point that I'm getting is if it is at the 5% rate, the cost of replacement is the same as the cost of increase. So why would we go for the increased cost?
Yes.
You might as well continue
If you
down the
hit
path of
5, yeah,
replacement.
if you hit 6, 7, or 8, then all of a sudden.
And if you
it's-
get 1 or 2,
Yeah, that's right.
right? I mean,
Thing is, when these fail, it doesn't matter. When one fails, the cost is like, there's no longer maintenance on these things. So before, maybe what they could have done is just switched an HPS to with HPS. That's done. Once one of these lights fails, the whole head and everything needs to get replaced
Yep.
and switched over to an LED, right? So I think that's the
That's the
forewarning. They're just letting
$6,000
everybody
cost.
know
Even doing that.
slowly in some spots, yeah. But I think we've gotten away with in the past with, having phone them up and saying, hey, this light's kind of broken.
are they wanting,
They'll come in.
are they wanting to come in and swap every light in here tomorrow? Like if we sign that contract, they're gonna be here, change every light in town tomorrow to LED.
I asked them that, and I believe in the discussion we had, they said they want it now. Well, of course, with the fire, who knows? But their original timeline, I believe we met in February, March area there, was 6 months. They want to come
Put
in
them all
here.
over.
They want to do a mass switch over, because for them, it's an easier thing to, get everything replaced, everything on LEDs, and makes their inventory a lot easier to control.
They don't even inventory the old stuff anymore, right?
So you're saying the 677 lights would be switched over within 6 months?
If we sign the contract.
I'm not saying that, I'm relaying the
That's what
message that
ACO is-
I was told that that's the job that they would be able to do.
Very interesting. Okay.
I personally would like to see the number that we've, replaced over the years, like per year.
Yeah.
And what age those were replaced at. I know it's a little bit of information, and how much we're spending on the budgetary impact. I don't think for me, that this is necessarily off the table. I like the idea of the investment funding that's coming back. But before we commit to this significant portion, like I like the idea of prepaying for a few years, putting that aside, before we commit to this option, and I understand every municipality is doing it, I'd like to know what we've spent.
Yeah.
And I do think I agree with Councillor Ferguson, it would be a better time to bring this back with budget in the fall. And even if we're not proceeding with this option, maybe we can, I would like to put a request in that we see this included as part of the reserve, at least the proposed for the
Yeah.
reserve
And
moving
we need
forward.
ATCO to come answer
And
these
I would like to
questions.
see ATCO come and answer these questions, because it's not fair to put this all on you. We have very specific ATCO questions. So if we could get them, then that would be great.
What I was gonna say, basically the same thing that you just said. No, that's okay. I do really like the commitment to a service level increase. I think some of our lights are not even shining brightly at all anymore. Like we do have some of those issues. And so that thought does appeal to me, but not for this amount of money, and definitely wanting more information. And I do think it would be appropriate for them to come to a future meeting as well. So I would agree with you guys on that angle.
So. Councillor Ferguson,
So I'll make a motion then, if it's okay with the rest of council, to table this and bring it back as part of budget deliberations.
perfect. There's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay. Oh, sorry.
Do we not have this before budget deliberation?
That's what I was gonna just say. Well, no, we should,
Yeah,
For another.
So why don't we make a friendly amendment that we will motion that to request ATCO to come to present to council, and then
make that decision,
Make that
budget,
decision.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, I accept that. Yeah, friendly amendment.
okay, any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? All right, that is carried.
thank you, Roland of ATCO.
Roland is now Roland of Finance.
All right, so the purpose of this report is to ask council to consider canceling outstanding taxes on number 75 812 6th Avenue Southwest. Administration has been working with the owner of this property since 2018 on outstanding taxes. Numerous options were given to the owner, such as switching to the town's TIP program or tax installment payment program, as well as various tax contracts in an effort to work with the owner to pay off the outstanding debt. The property was abandoned in 2022 and left in an undesirable state. There was significant damage to the trailer, including water damage, rot, and garbage. The trailer park owners, Westside Shawnigan Investments LP, took measures to clean up the property as well as the trailer itself. The combined total owed to both the park as well as the town is well in excess of $30,000, with more investment needed to either remove the trailer or to renovate it into a state of suitable for living. The park has indicated that we would be willing to write off the cost they have incurred to date to move forward in restoring the site in order to generate income should the town cancel the amounts that it's owing for us as well. The current amount owing to the town as of the date of this report is $13,711.58. As per section 347 of the MGA, it states that if a council considers it equitable to do so, it may generally or with respect to a particular taxable property or business or class of taxable property or businesses, do one or more of the following: cancel or reduce tax arrears, cancel or refund all or part of a tax, or defer the collection of a tax. Administration is recommending that council forgive the tax owing on this property and allow the trailer park to move forward with the disposal or sale of the trailer. The town could proceed on its own and remove the trailer. However, this would result in more costs incurred by the town with no chance of recovering any proceeds. The town could also invest money to restore the property. However, this again would require additional expenditures, time and resources, with a likelihood of also not recovering any additional proceeds or furthering the loss already on this property. Lastly, the town could proceed to sell the trailer at auction as is. This again would also result in little chance of recovery any funds given the amount owing on the trailer from both the town and the trailer park. Given the willingness of the park to take on this project and also to taking into consideration the time and investment the park has already undertaken, administration feels the best course of action would be allow the park to proceed in dealing with the trailer. Administration has also been in contact with representatives of the park owners, and they are agreeable to the conditions presented. Should the park not fulfill their obligations, the taxes owing would remain on the property, and the town would then have to explore further options. So it's recommended that council cancels the outstanding taxes on the property with conditions, and the conditions I set in the motion there, that we give the trailer park owners 4 months to sell or remove the trailer, on condition that as long as if there's any surplus sale proceeds that they receive, that they then forward those proceeds onto the town to put towards the outstanding taxes.
Councillor Graham.
So this trailer, it's not gonna go for sale though, right? It's wrecked. They're removing it.
They're looking at two options, right? So
Well, I think it'd be interesting to know what the options are, because if it's sellable, I don't know why we wouldn't try to sell it and get our
because
$13,000.
I'm dealing with these before, so I've dealt with another trailer at around, I think it was around 23 grand, and I think we made off with about $1,500. So these guys are ready to go tomorrow. They want to move, want to jump, they want to get this. You know, I feel like they're further ahead in the process than where we'd have to start at. And doing this would either get us another trailer in there or, bring this back to a taxable status. Because right now it's just sitting there and no one's paying, we're all losing.
Under this motion, would we then request to see the sale documents for
I've
said
already done that agreement behind the scenes, so they're
so
agreeable.
we would get a copy of, we're
Correct.
not just doing it like on our honor, we would get the
Correct.
sale documents and then we would get the removal.
I've already asked for, the required documents. I want to see all that, and then we close out because there's a process on our end. And so they know that this is on condition, right? And that's, so I stated that there. So if they fail to do any of this, they sell, they don't sell it, they don't remove it, and it just sits there for 4 months. We're no worse off than we are today. It's just giving them the option to move way faster than we probably could.
Under resource impacts there, you had the bad debt expense of 13,000 and then the note that the town annually budgets for bad debt expense on taxes of 50. Have we used that 50?
We use some of it. So the part of it that we do is a known bad debt. So, and that's on government properties. So the government doesn't pay its full share of its tax bill. And so we recognize the full revenue and taxes and then recognize the bad debt expense. And then there's about 15 to 18 grand left for, you know, properties such as this.
Okay,
So it's not gonna have a negative impact on.
Councillor Brandel.
I struggle with the word canceling taxes. I get the concept, but I just don't want this to be setting a precedent and you know, I just don't like the word cancel because you know, it is really a bad debt.
Yeah, we'd be forgiving. I think in the state that it's in and, you know, where we're at. This is one of the cheaper options and routes
Yeah,
to
I
take on
don't
this
know.
particular.
My worry is
instance.
setting precedents and I understand that this one is, you know, similar to a foreclosure or abandoning, but I don't know. I worry that we are setting precedents, so I don't know, I struggle with this one.
Councillor Moalo.
How many of these, like I used to see these, like a lot of these trailers, probably like maybe 10 or 5 to 10 years ago, these would come up regularly. I don't see them coming up as often. Did we have any in the last couple of years that have asked for forgiveness?
I know we've had a couple, but I think, you know, we've been on a fairly large campaign to like really aggressively work with as many people as possible. Exploring payment options to kind of avoid that, but you know, in the last couple of years, I think we've had probably more than I've seen. Again, a trailer that's not on its own parcel of land is way worse than a trailer that has a parcel of land because just the value can be so low. So and depending on in these instances here too, the last one we dealt with was in the other park, and again, the park itself was willing to get rid of its share of the thing so that we could move through with the sale so that they could just get a new owner in there. So like I know I've dealt with the parks where they're willing to just get rid of their part and we'll recover at least as much as we can on our end, but it's not a lot.
I see it actually is written a bit differently. I really like how this motion is written because in the instance that we didn't do this and then just kept accruing the taxes that realistically the property's been abandoned, we would then try to sell it and then have to either pay for the removal costs or the transport costs. So in essence, this is just a business, Westside, that is trying to move on. And the way it's written, we would get any surplus and that's mandatory as part of it. So essentially the business is assisting with it. Yes, we may lose out in this, but I personally don't think this looks very collectible to let it just sit there. So I like the way, I really think the way you wrote the motion is, I don't think creative is the right word, but I like that it has that caveats in there that if it does end up being profitable, that we can at least recover some of what we spent
yeah.
or is owed to us for property taxes. We didn't spend it, but.
Because there's still going to be additional costs as legal fees and everything else. that we're
And
gonna have.
administration time as well, that's not valued in that.
Well, and at the end of the day, what are our other options?
Sit and
But-
wait.
Tax sale. Okay,
I will move that council agrees to cancel the taxes on number 75-812 Sixth Ave Southwest in the amount of $13,711.58 on condition that the West Side Shawnigan Investments LP removes or sells the trailer within 4 months and so long as any surplus sale proceeds that remain after accounting for the cost of removal or sale of the trailer are paid to the town to be put towards outstanding taxes. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that, those opposed, and that is carried. Thanks, Roland. Passion. We've lost two. Do we want to
take a 2 minute.
Can we take a 5-minute break? Oh, we're back.
All right.
Carry on.
Fair enough. All right, we are here to talk about the lifeguard wage grid adjustment that I'm proposing. As we all are aware, we have had some significant challenges at our aquatic center and we are doing a lot of things to help rectify the situation, and this is one of them.
Lifeguards play a critical role in our community, and by offering fair compensation, we will create a sustainable aquatic center operation, which will help promote our exceptional quality of life. In this report, the term lifeguard will be used to encompass the positions of both lifeguards and swim instructors. To become a lifeguard, an individual must have completed bronze medallion, bronze cross, standard first aid with CPRC, and then be trained in their respective courses in either swim instructor, national lifeguard, and most often in both of those. The combined cost is well over $1,000, and the time invested is over 100 hours of in-class training time. Right now in Alberta and actually across North America, I just read an interesting article. The aquatic center is facing significant staffing shortages, and Slave Lake is of course no exception. Recruitment from other communities is limited, and so creating a local model of recruitment and retention is essentially our only goal. The recruitment, point one, is training remodel. We have remodeled how we recruit and onboard lifeguards. We have recently launched a new program where we pay for the training costs for local applicants that can pass the swim test and commit to work at Northern Lakes Aquatic Center. We have five people that are currently in this process, and we are working towards onboarding them, which will happen actually shortly after this week. Our onboarding remodel, we have remodeled how we onboard staff. We have created a new casual position called an assistant lifeguard. This assistant lifeguard position can be 15 years old, completed the bronze medallion and bronze cross, and in the process of getting their national lifeguard by the age of 16 or within a few months of completing the bronze cross. So this is a brand new position that we've created as a casual position. So it's within our casual capacity. This position can be guarding on deck under the supervision of a senior guard. This allows us to fill the gap between completion of bronze cross and when the national lifeguarding course can be offered, which is currently a gap for us. This will allow us to train guards under experienced senior lifeguards, increasing their training time, which will result in high levels of service and higher quality of guarding. This position does not replace our junior lifeguards. Our staffing model on deck remains the same to ensure the safety of our patrons. However, it does permit a slight increase in our ratios, which more than compensates for the cost of the assistant lifeguard. The discussion on the table today is that the current pay scale for lifeguards is inadequate and is causing several issues, specifically a lack of retention and a lack of mature applicants. This not only creates a disruption in our aquatic center operations, but also creates an unsustainable operation. In addition, the higher rate of turnover leads to a loss of experienced staff, which can affect the quality of training provided to new lifeguards. Increasing the lifeguard pay grid is necessary to create a sustainable aquatic center operation. Attract and retain experienced staff. A higher pay scale will attract experienced lifeguards, which can lead to a better overall job performance and a safer environment for our patrons. Retaining experienced staff is also crucial to ensure consistency in training and operations. Increased job satisfaction. A higher pay scale can increase job satisfaction among staff, which can lead to better morale, motivation, and loyalty. It could improve the reputation of our aquatic center by creating a sustainable and well-staffed operation. The reputation of the aquatic center will improve. This can increase patronage, revenue, and community support. And it will reduce the cost of training, as high turnover rates mean that more resources must be allocated to training new staff. By retaining experienced staff, the cost of training can be reduced and resources can be allocated elsewhere. HR did a comparison between other small urban aquatic centers in our region, and we fall in the very bottom percentile. Currently, our lifeguards start at $17.64 an hour, our junior lifeguards. The median is $18.27 and the 75th percentile is $19.67. Currently, our senior lifeguards start at $19.53. The median is $22.06 and the 75th percentile is $25.65. Our pay grid for the front desk at the MRC is the equivalent as our junior lifeguards currently. However, approximately 40 to 50 hours of training is required for that MRC front desk position, and the assistant lifeguard position qualifications, the assistant lifeguard that we've just created, results in 40 to 50 hours of training between the bronze cross and bronze medallions first aid, making those two positions similar in time investment required to perform the job. Below is the current pay grid we offer for our current junior and senior lifeguards. And following that is the proposed pay grid, adding in the additional assistant lifeguard position. These new grid scales are based on the median that was researched by HR in markets similar to ours. All right, so we took the median level. So what we've proposed is implementing the medium senior guard rate, the median junior guard rate, and putting the assistant guard at the same level as what is currently our junior guard rate, which is also our current MRC front desk rate. If you follow me along with that. Okay. The adoption of the new grid will have additional cost impacts. However, the revenue generated by allowing us to increase our capacity at the pool will offset those costs and help to stabilize our operations, which will outweigh the cost of implementing the grid, in my opinion. With 5 assistant guards currently being trained, if they were casually employed at 10 hours a week, we could take approximately an additional 30 patrons maximum during their designated shift times. The capacity for revenue per hour is $97.50, assuming a mix of children, youth, and families, resulting in a net profit after their hour of pay of $79.86 per hour. Our current staffing annual budget is $186,639, and the adopted increase will increase to $208,000, $22,000, $301 increase. However, there is a significant projected revenue of being able to allow additional patronage, which will offset those costs. We do recognize that these costs are well below our projected revenue. The non-cost benefits of this include, we have more capacity, which equals less turn-away at the door. We have more staffing options, meaning less canceled swims. We have the ability to onboard faster and train more comprehensively. A higher rate of pay may attract more mature applicants and experienced staff. So we have a couple options on the table. One, we can accept the proposed pay grid as presented, funding the cost difference from revenues. Or 2, decline any changes to the current lifeguard pay grid, which will result in the assistant lifeguard pay grid to be redeveloped at a lower rate.
Councillor Grella.
Tasha, this is wonderful. There's lots of good information. I really appreciate the thorough report. For me, you could have said we'd lose a bunch of money, and I think it's important that doesn't matter in this case, because we pay for a big pool, and the wages of staff are so minimal in those costs, and to have families being turned away and constantly seeing that in discussion, why is it closed again? So we could have lost money and I would still be for this, but the fact that it's at least cost neutral, maybe even some revenue, that's even great. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. I'll let everyone else talk before
Councillor Hughes.
I make.
I was gonna say along the same lines, I love the report. I think you did a great job coming up with the new, wage grid for everybody. I think it makes sense and it's reasonable. I love to see increased capacity. That's been something we've been hearing from residents. So I appreciate all the initiative and time and energy into doing this. I think this will definitely help and I fully support it.
Councillor Adams.
How often are we at capacity at the pool in a year?
It's a
Every
good
day.
question. Often. Yeah, I would say.
Turn away
often.
on a regular basis?
The discussion board says so.
Yeah.
Also, I was gonna make now that you mentioned capacity, I was gonna say it. I know that, so our family usually uses private lessons. And we were on the wait list for private lessons for 6 months because of staffing. So like the last time we were able to get in was last March. And so I think the additional lifeguards, so it's just.
But how is
increasing
this
service
going to
level.
alleviate the staffing issue? If we couldn't hire them before and we had open positions, how does?
Well, they get more
this
money.
magically-
They're paid more.
$2.
It's a big deal.
For some people, that makes all the difference. It could be the difference between them choosing to work for us or somewhere else. So
So
it's not isolated. This isn't a solve all by this one piece. We've done a lot of different things to alleviate the situation and it's working. We are starting to see, we've had less closures. We are seeing the changes evolving. This is one more piece of the puzzle.
So how many lifeguard staff did we have before? And by doing this, we're going to increase. Or suddenly.
Right now, we are ready to onboard
lifeguards?
5 through this program, through the program that we implemented through our,
From the past one, but I mean. So you're saying this $2 an hour increase is going to bring in another 5 lifeguards?
But it's not $2 because that's the median rate.
No, look at the difference. I mean, it goes $2 across the board. pretty much.
so right now, I think the way I view this in terms of is compensating at a wage that is relevant to the training and the job that they're doing.
Yeah, let me
I
interject.
just always thought the problem
So-
was actually getting the people.
It is, but like
Period.
if you're a young kid, which these are young people.
Yeah.
You could take a much easier job at the front desk of an MRC and you're making the same thing. Now you have people's lives in your hands, but hey, I'm willing to take this training and do this for a bit more money. So I think you had to bump that up, right? Or people are gonna not want to do this when they could do a much easier job within our own organization for the same pricing, right? That's essentially it. That's kind of what I
We
go.
have enough people around that are trained. We just can't get them to do it because
So
there's not
Brianne-
enough money.
What is a great example of this, and this isn't her words, so I'm just using her as an example, not her words, not a conversation I've had with her, so I'm just using her. She has amazing experience, phenomenal asset in our community right now, not working for us. So what can I do to create an environment that will ensure that she will be able to want to come and work and use her free spare time at our facility?
So these aren't full-time people. We're trying to get casual.
I would
part-time.
love more people that could dedicate more time to this, but it's very hard to find people that will work full-time for the rates that we pay.
Counselor Moella? And then.
No, I was just saying if we don't support this motion, then we might we jeopardize the lives of pool users, I think, and we might as well just shut the pool down and save the liability.
That's why we're
That is-
turning
that's-
people away is to
Yeah.
keep the liability where it should be.
So just a point of clarification. So if you were to go back 6 months ago, or basically our lifeguards included, they had to be 16 years old. They had to have all their qualifications.
Yeah.
And in reality, you have, for the most part, 16 to 18, then they're off to school. So we've got a very short window to potentially employ these students or to employ lifeguards.
Including training,
So what's that?
that including training, so you have to get them
Correct.
trained to that point. So they're
Correct.
very short.
That's right. So by adding this junior lifeguard provision, we're opening our window now a little bit bigger. So now we're looking at 15-year-olds. So we're actually adding staff, and we've already moved towards that model. So that was part one of the problem. The second part of the problem was the compensation grid didn't match that model. We had a congestion at the bottom. So to add that junior lifeguard, we had to bounce the other two up, right? Which will impact those other fully qualified as well. But we expanded a capability by adding these junior lifeguards, but the compensation grid didn't match. And so this is like part two of the same solution.
Okay.
Right?
Counselor Adams.
Okay, so then to take this, say it all goes ahead, yay. How long to implement? How long do you see results?
So if this goes through today, I'll be onboarding 5 people tomorrow.
Okay, and then by the time you increase hours and you have your increase in income,
When will we see the costs
when
of
would you
that?
see that? Not
When
the
they're on
cost,
deck.
the revenue side.
When they're on shift, because our additional, the patronage
So
ratio.
you're
can
saying
go
we'll
up
immediately see a patronage
when they're
increase,
scheduled, yeah.
not
Yeah.
3 months down the road.
No, it's instant.
Well, she broke it down
Okay,
by
can we
hours.
see a report brought back on that on the next quarter then?
Yeah, we definitely could.
Just out of curiosity, see how it's going. I'd like to see
Yeah.
uptimes and capacity usage or even
Yeah.
revenue to expense would be great.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, thank you. I'll shut up now.
Counselor Hughes.
Would love to make a motion then. Oh, sorry, let me scroll down. I move to adopt the proposed pay grid for senior lifeguards, junior lifeguards, and assistant lifeguards using reserves for the remainder of the 2023 season to offset the costs.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried.
You should make a motion for your request, Council Adams, just so we can add it to our task
As
list.
I said,
Counselor Adams would like a report over the next quarter regarding the revenues, expenses, and increased usage attributed to the new lifeguard compensation program.
so like end of, what would that be, October?
You give us the time frame, we'll bring it back.
After summer, sure. October.
I would, just a thought, I mean, typically summer months, people probably are at the beach, so like what would be an appropriate
You could
time frame to
compare.
actually get comparable?
You will, but it might not reflect our overall annual, and September's shutdown.
But you could
So-
do like last June to this June,
Sure.
I
right?
guess,
You could
yeah.
compare the summer months probably and you should be
Good
able to see
July,
some
August comparison,
increase.
for sure.
Yeah, I should see ideally, I should
Yeah.
see an increase in
Yeah.
expense, and you're saying our revenue would outpace the increase in expense, so.
That's what I'm suggesting, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So we
as
should
it-
still see a trend.
I'd rather see it
Saying
like at the end of winter, because that's gonna be your busy period,
I would
right?
agree.
I'd choose 1 year.
The fall.
I'd like to amend the motion to a 1 year.
I think it'd be, I don't think we're giving it fair justice if we're
Correct.
That's. my
judging the
point.
summer.
Yes, I agree. I don't think that's
There's a
a
friendly,
fair assessment.
there's a friendly amendment to extend the timeline of the data to
Yes.
a year. Counselor Adams.
My point is it gets away from what the number is. I want to see where it's going sooner than later. It doesn't mean that come September, I'm going, oh, that's it. We're going back to the way it was and pulling it all out. We're not saying that. I'd just like to see what's happened,
it's one measurable though.
Yeah.
So
and we'll see it again come budget. And we'll
for
see it
sure. So my
again come-
question is, what if you don't see it?
Yeah, it sucks. Then I'm going to pay attention more to the next one.
I'm confident you will,
Yeah.
but, and I have no problem
No, from
reporting
what you
on
said
it.
here, you're saying you're confident.
I
as
think you
well,
need to
so I'd
compare
like to see
apples
it.
to
See, the demand is there and we're putting the measures in place to meet that demand.
Right.
I'm just curious. And of course, I think we should be
And it's not
accountable
like
to
it's an
all these
ultimatum to
things.
say that if this doesn't show,
Okay,
that's
that's
it.
what I'm wondering, like, where's
No,
this going?
Of course,
Okay.
I would just like to see what's happening and seeing it trend up. I would love to see. I'm much along the same lines as what Sean is, sorry, Councillor Gramlich had said,
Sean is fine.
is I want to see usage. And for the fact of the matter, if
Maybe
we're,
both.
I don't care if we're losing more money. We're already losing an obscene amount of money. So I want to see usage. So if those numbers are going up, I'm
The
happy.
statement.
Wow, I'm gonna write this day down that you said
I
that.
say that about the MRC all the time.
You do. I think decisions that improve our quality of life, but increase the usage of our facility at the same time is important.
Yes.
Jeffrey.
Just a question. So as a regular course of business at our committee of the wholes, department heads typically bring back service level reviews of different programs or initiatives. Could this just be, could we slate this for a service level review?
How about a
Uh,
service level review in
Sure,
November?
November, that's what I was
I don't know if
thinking.
this is added to your list already as a service level review, Tasha.
No, it's not.
The
I'm
pool.
just not sure November would be, if this is gonna be an annual report, November wouldn't. Well,
I think,
maybe.
I think he was more thinking like committee of the whole, just an update if there's
Yeah,
there's
no.
been any changes over the last few months. And then it moves to an annual when we can compare it to.
Yeah,
What would be a
Sure.
good time frame to do a review on the service before? Usually you would do it at the lowest time prior to the up season, right?
mhm. Yeah, but if November's fine, it's fine.
Or would you like to do it in September when you're closed prior to the season being changed, and any change to service delivery would be?
That,
Once
if
the
we're gonna
pool-
make a change to service delivery, it should be done in September.
Okay.
Which is happening. Those plans are being made in September.
Right.
I think this is more just a review and update. Not
That's
to
all I
a
know.
full.
But for you it is, but for us, when we do it, we evaluate as we go through those and make any changes that.
Mhm. Do you have a preferred month?
October, November, September, I don't care.
Let's do November. It might give us a little bit of a broader
I like that
snapshot.
idea.
November it is. Did you get that long convoluted motion?
Mm-hmm.
Ashley,
And we'll have gone through another process of onboarding the Bronze Cross Bronze Medallion. We'll have gone through more cycles,
Yeah.
not just the
Mhm.
one that we're in right now. We'll have additional cycles to see the trends
Mm.
of what that
And
looks like.
also one, like, it'd be nice to see how long it keeps. them.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, they have, yeah. There is a commitment there.
Cool, thank you.
okay,
Okay.
so we have a motion on the floor for the service level review in November, which is the very short version coming back at committee of the whole. Any further discussion?
No.
Call to question those in favor. And that is carried.
Enjoy your
Thank
evening.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Those are really good reports.
Can we have a 5-minute break, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Ashley, you can let us know when it's on pause.
Motion to go in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, not like.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here tonight to discuss the automated traffic enforcement. Currently, we are using Global Traffic Enforcement. We've been using them since 2014. The current contract that we are using was agreed to in 2018. It stopped for a period of time due to COVID, and it started again, and then it was extended through a couple of council motions to get us to where we are today. Part of the program that is currently in place is the breakdown for fees to the government is 40%. The current contract is 37% to Global Traffic Enforcement and 22.9% to the town of Slave Lake. We decided this year to put it out to RFP, and we also internally looked at a couple of different options where Photo Radar may end up, and there was only one RFP that was returned back to Slave Lake, the current company that is doing the job now. So what we did is we went and we reviewed a few different options. Some of them would be to take the new RFP with the breakdown in option number one as follows. 40% to the government, which is the common fee for all tickets written in Alberta. So that's whether it's a peace officer, an RCMP officer, Photo Radar, all that is the fee that is standard. The fee to Global Traffic is 48.7%, understanding that that is the top end of their scale. They do have a scale based on number of hours. The lower end of the scale at 25 hours is about 40%. So there is a bit of scale in there, and that would leave 11% to the town. With Global Traffic, they do give us reports based on the places that they set up their cameras. So we do have some information, things like 60% of the tickets are written out of town persons, 40% are written in town. The majority of the tickets, I believe it's around 70%, is written to personal versus business registrations. So they do track certain things. They do stop signs. They have movable stationary cameras. Well, unfortunately, that program is frozen until the end of December 2023. The government put a freeze on all those types of programs until the end of the year. They're reevaluating the whole program. So the only thing we could use right now is the truck that you've probably seen around town, or vehicles. I shouldn't say that truck, but different vehicles. One of the other options we looked at was to provide our own photo enforcement services. Mostly this takes place in the bigger centers in Alberta. It is possible. One of the things that we kind of struggled with when we were looking at this program currently is purchasing equipment. It's pretty specialized equipment, and you have to go to a specialized company as well as the software. Most of the cities and the bigger centers and these private companies are using their own software that they've developed. So we would have to look at purchasing software that one of the other cities is probably using, as well as the employee costs. So to have a full-time peace officer and an administrative assistant to go through the tickets and submit them and get them sent out. So we're looking at employee costs of $170,000 annually, and then the capital cost of the camera and the vehicle to be around $150,000. Option number 3 would be to not have Photo Radar in town anymore and to go to a third peace officer. What we could do in our peace officer program is have a full-time traffic enforcement officer, have a full-time bylaw enforcement officer, and then our senior peace officer who would manage that program. So currently we have 2 peace officers in town. Recently, we went to a 7-day coverage instead of the model that was before. So we have a lot of more coverage of peace officers in the town of Slave Lake. You may see them on Saturdays, Sundays, a little bit extended hours, but usually there's only 1 working versus 2. So the new program, we would have a bit more double 2 peace officers on the street, a bit more longer times during the day. So starting earlier, staying longer, and 1 person could be solely dedicated to traffic enforcement in our municipality. Keeping in mind that 60% of that revenue would come back to Slave Lake versus the 11% under the new contract. Again, that would come with a fee of a employee and the capital costs to get them equipped and started within our program. Another option that we looked at would be to take in option number one, that would be a 3-year contract for the Global, is trying to negotiate a 1-year contract with Global. So we still have photo radar services in town. And that would give us the next year to come up with a plan, either to take it over ourselves, to go to a peace officer, or to potentially not have photo enforcement in town. Option number 5 would be to let the current contract expire at the end of June of 2023 and have no photo radar in the town of Slave Lake anymore. Based on the numbers that the information that Global Traffic provides us, they do data analysis, and there is documentation to show that people are driving slower because there is photo radar in town. Intersections are safer when they're doing stop sign enforcement and things like that. So it does have its positives as well. So, and those numbers will be shared through the council. Some of the resource impacts, accepting the new Global Traffic would have a minimal to no resource impacts. The new fee schedule would be followed, but they're an all-in-one package. They don't really cost us anything. They're a company that comes in with all the assets, and they just do the job. One thing we are finding right now, they are struggling with having a staff person in Slave Lake. So it's the current model, they're bringing in staff from other areas to support the Slave Lake region while they actively try to recruit somebody for our region. Adding a town of Slave Lake traffic enforcement or peace officer would add operating capital costs. And ending the traffic enforcement Slave Lake would also terminate the fine revenue that we do collect. And in the last page of the report, you can see since 2015, we have brought in a total of $849,000 in fine revenue. And the funds we've used since 2017, we've spent $473,000. So we do have a bit of that fine revenue in our reserves for projects that are currently ongoing or projected for 2024. And at this time, we'll take any questions.
Councillor Adams' hand went up first.
Okay, how many days in a year do we have photo enforcement currently?
So when they're working on their first schedule, they're 40 hours a week. So it varies on days, but it's 40 hours a week. So they could put in 12-hour days, they could put in 8-hour days. So, but they do work on a full-time 40-hour schedule with one person.
So they were here with one person full-time.
Yeah,
for
so
the
that's
whole year, and we got 79 grand.
Because that.
so
only
last year was the first year where we both, like, they did have 2 people, one was a part-time, and both those people left. And so now they're using other resources to hold up their end of the current contract. So they're not working full-time hours right now in Slave Lake. They're doing the base of the contract right now.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were out every single day. All right, you want to ask?
No, I was just wondering, do we have a say where they go?
Yeah,
Or do
so
they
the
decide where they go?
RCMP in town, along with our peace officer program, those positions are predetermined.
Okay.
So they can't just go wherever we feel. They're based on safety, based on where the RCMP feels there's a high traffic, school zones, playground zones, intersections, that types of things. And those are all predetermined and reviewed annually as per the contract. And those are the only places they can go to.
So I assume that safety is the number one concern where we tell them, okay, that's where we want you. It's not fine revenue where.
Oh, it's in high hazard areas, high traffic
Safety
areas.
focused, that's
Okay.
right. High collision, high impact areas.
I got lots to say when you guys say safe.
I'll
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll let you speak. Maybe you'll say what I want to say.
I struggle with, I believe some of the locations are correct. I struggle with the times, and it is a
It's
personal.
4:30.
I received a ticket at 4:29 PM in a school zone. That is 1 minute before the school zone ends, and I understand that rules are rules. However, there is no. I struggle with this program because I don't believe there to be reasonability within the program. I would rather look at the actual times the schools have children there. At 4:30, it's done. And no leeway. It was 6 kilometers over. I paid the ticket. That's fine. I understand it was within the rules. Too much of this feels like a cash grab the way it has been currently designed. And I really haven't been in support of it for a long time.
Okay,
You were next,
so
then Steve.
here's my thing on safety, and Julie would just tell me to slow down right now. Before that's what you're gonna tell me to say. But I don't get as many photo radar tickets because I have slowed down. But for me, it's not for safety, it's a cash grab. They put it on Highway 88 where we need to increase that speed limit, but you get a ticket for going 66 on Highway 88. You're saving nobody's lives there. That's not for safety, that's for money to build parks. School zones are great during school hours, not at 4:30, no one's there, silly time. But if you want to talk about safety, and we've had these people come in and they're not here today to defend for themselves, but they've heard this for 6 straight years. If you put it in residential where people are driving 60 or down, 60 is only 10 kilometers over the speed limit, and a police officer might not even give you a ticket. But that's where safety would be in residential on 12th Street where people are ripping up and down there. It's not for safety. And they said right here, well, there's not enough people speeding in there to make a case. Well, if you stop 2 people from speeding and hitting a little kid chasing a soccer ball or something, that's for safety. This is for money. It's for a cash grab. It's like an extra tax. If we want more money for parks, let's raise taxes. Like I find it nuts to say it's for safety. Now Julie's turn, because she always goes back at me on this.
I'll remind you that the RCMP are the major component of where this photo radar takes place. So even though the company can say that it's because there's not a lot of speeders there, the RCMP are the major drivers of where they're allowed to be placed in town. So they're going off of where the RCMP feels is high traffic hazards, speeding, playground zones, things like that.
I agree that.
like
You're gonna
that.
catch way more people going 36 in a 30 than you're going on there. You're only gonna catch a couple teenagers, but those are the ones that need to stop their speeds. Like no one's speeding through school zones. I don't know if they have the data they used to. There's no one's going 60 through a school zone during the day and getting that ticket. It's the 36s and the 37s. We're nickeling and diming people, and it's not for safety in my head. It's for money.
Just one point. I'll remind that, in coming up in June, I believe, the end of June or the last session in June, council will have the opportunity to weigh in on the rules that are essentially.
We won't need to after this.
ATA is enforcing, or traffic is enforcing the rules, but the rules you have the ability to set. So you have the ability to change school zone hour times. If you don't think that 4:30 is good enough anymore, could be 4 o'clock if you so wish. Right?
Somewhat, but it still doesn't make anything safer.
So you have that ability to address the school zones, the times, the speed limits on specific roads. If you feel as a council that those aren't respective or those aren't accurate, they're implementing a service under the rules that are established by council. So just something to keep in mind. We can change the parameters of what they operate under, but they're still focusing, they're just delivering a service based on the rules that.
Yeah, we'll adjust those speeds too, but this is not for safety for me. It's for money.
Okay, so Counselor Adams,
I
then
don't like
Counselor
it.
Bradley.
I don't talk, sorry.
All right.
Counselor Hughes.
First off, there's a big difference getting hit from 30 to 37. But anyways, I'm honestly, I'm in favor more of option 2. I realize there's money outlay on it, but 2 things with this. 1, we have more control of it as a community. 2, just looking at the numbers and in the historical piece, at the lowest year, that would mean a $209,000 increase in fines coming to the town of Slave Lake. Yeah. And then on the busiest year, that would mean we're making $419,000 to the town of Slave Lake. So having those increases more than offset the additional peace officer that we can have in the community. It offsets the expense of still funding parks, funding safety. Personally, I'd like to, as I've said so many times, I'd like to focus on that some of that money going to make those danger zones safer by whatever means necessary. And where was
Are you saying option 2 or option 3? Option 3 is the full-time
Option
peace
2.
officer. Option 2 is the doing our own photo enforcement. Option 3 is the
Yeah,
peace
but it has a
officer,
full-time, an FTE and a PTE.
but it's only photo radar.
It would only, the peace officer would only be,
Peace officer.
there's different levels of peace officer. They would only be dedicated to photo radar. They wouldn't be able to physically pull people over. Their job would be 40 hours a week of doing the photo radar job.
So option 3 is adding, right, option 3 is adding the peace officer.
And you do option 2 and 3 and it's paid for by the photo revenue on average.
And for your first point, even though if option 2 was the decision, we still don't get to just go park wherever we want. We
I
still have to
understand, we
follow
still gotta
those
meet the rules.
Now, option 3,
But we have control over saying we're gonna start doing photo radar at 3:15 to
sure, yeah.
4:10. Or whatever we wanted.
option
Some
3,
leeway perhaps, but
what's that,
anyway,
sorry?
no,
So option 3 gives the our bylaw services more flexibility. We could park on 10th and watch, do residential street enforcement if that's the wish of council. However, what I would caution though is the closer that council and direction of enforcement gets, the more those lines start to blur, right? And so the nice piece of having ATA, or let's say the RCMP doing enforcement, is that they operate at an arm's length. The closer now we have that enforcement being a function of council, being a function of the town, may open yourselves up to more, you're going to be the point of contact or complaint when that enforcement is taking place in those residential areas or wherever the case may be. The other part of it is every interaction with that bylaw officer, every ticket that they write will be a demerit issued ticket. Because there'll be a personal contact, no different if you got caught speeding on the highway. Whereas photo radar, if there's a benefit to it, there's no demerit points written to the registered owner. It's the ticket's issued to the registered owner. So just things to keep in mind as to when you're considering what kind of enforcement model you want for the town.
It was Councilor Randall and Councilor Hughes and Councilor Brown. Councilor Randall.
Yeah, as when we're talking about the safety, it's a double-edged sword because I mean, like Alex said, the reports are there and there is data to support that people are speeding less in certain spots. I don't know about every single spot, and maybe there are some ones that we have to tweak, and I'm totally okay with opening that box. But the photo radar isn't the end all beat all. I've always said that. I'm a fan, but by itself, it's not the whole answer to safety, but neither is our peace officers. So together with RCMP, peace officers, and the photo radar, I do believe that our streets are a little safer because people are slowing down.
So what option are you in favor of at this point in time?
Status quo.
Status quo.
Councilor Hughes.
My comments have kind of gone, but to your point that you just made about demerits for people, I would say yay to that, because then maybe they'll think twice before driving too fast down the residential streets. Like that actually achieves something more geared toward the
It's like an
safety.
immediate.
Yeah, the
not
safety of
immediate second
residents
event.
versus a cash grab, like Councillor Grumlick said.
All it is.
So I am kind of on the side of that. I have a question for Alex, though. So option 3, just to reiterate, so if you were to hire this third peace officer, though, and you're doing your 7 days, this double shift thing, this second position, so essentially we'd have 2 peace officers on all the time, or can you just?
No, there's still going to be times where there may only be one.
Okay.
So right now, speaking with the senior peace officer, kind of the model we could go to is we'd still have our senior peace officer who oversees them. We'd go to we'd be more focused on the bylaw type things. And then the other person could be solely directed on or focused on traffic enforcement. They can still do both. And the senior peace officer has the ability to go out there and do either one of those things. But we're adding somebody whose main focus is traffic enforcement, playground zones, school zones, high traffic areas, those types of things. So, and then you have somebody who's more dedicated to the bylaw type things, the unsightly properties, the grass, that kind of stuff. And then the senior peace officer would kind of direct them on. Now, if we felt that we had a really troublesome area for a period of time, we could have 2 peace officers focused in that area for, because there's going to be more overlap of having 2 peace officers on. We could start earlier, we could go later. Right now, they're working on 12-hour shifts and 9-hour shifts, depending on which days they're working. So some days we have them a bit longer, sometimes we don't.
Okay.
With the current model of 2, they have one overlap day, and there's about 4 days in the month where we don't have a peace officer on with the current schedule.
Okay. Okay, so basically this position could essentially assist with safety, like that would actually be a direct result of this.
Yeah,
then.
that would be their
They
main
would
focus.
be in the areas that we need them to be, the areas that residents are voicing concerns about, the 4-way stop by speedies, the school areas, et cetera.
So our peace officers on the street would still be peace officers, but they internally, they would be, one of them would be focused on traffic enforcement and one would be more focused on bylaw. But
Okay.
on those busy, all in weekends and things, we could have potentially 3 peace officers out there doing enforcement for
Okay.
things like that.
Okay, well, I came in with a different idea and now I'm a little, I actually kind of.
Let me speak again.
Counselor, I kind of like Counselor Adams' suggestion of like a option 2/option 3 kind of thing. I don't know. I'm just
One thing-
spitballing, but
The one thing I would caution on option two, we need to do some more research on it. We, using our current senior peace officer, we were able to gather minimal information in the period of time that we were given.
right.
So we would definitely need some more time to gather accurate costs and things like that.
Okay, and I mean, what about the availability to fill these roles? Like that is always a struggle for us as well. Is this something we feel we could even do immediately, I guess?
When we posted our last peace officer job, we had quite a few applicants. I think we were very fortunate to have a pretty good selection to fill that peace officer role.
Right,
Can't speak to the photo part because we've never, that I'm aware of, never tried to hire a photo radar person, so.
okay, thank you. I will let someone else go.
Counselor Gramlich.
Okay,
And then I'm putting my hand up to be in the line.
the gallery over there.
So global
Give me the time of day because I'm talking to them.
Automatic as soon as you put it in.
Wait.
So there's nobody doing it.
You guys back or no? Okay, so what Jeff said, so you're talking about demerits, that's an actual deterrent, because the photo radars, no one gives a hoot if you pay $120. And when you get them, you're getting them weeks later. So like, no, you don't even know you got caught speeding. When a police officer pulled me over, I drive good for like 2 weeks because I got a big ticket. I got demerits and my wife yelled at me and I learned my lesson. The photo radars teach no one a lesson at all. And you don't know you got them. So demerits is great because then you actually start paying attention. And the other part with the police officer or a peace officer pulling you over, and we talk about petty crime and this, that, and the other thing. Now they're sticking their head in the window and they're seeing this guy who might have a warrant, he might have cannabis. I don't know, multiple different reasons why you stick your head in the window. I want to get back to the human element, not a ticket 2 weeks later in the mail that was $120 and everyone makes 150 grand here, so no one cares about it.
Make 150, I don't make 150.
Everyone in the oil patch does.
Everyone except me?
I'll hire you and you could drive faster. Okay, someone else.
Okay,
She's putting herself.
hi. I will interject here. I love option 3. And I don't love photo radar. But the reason, so I have voted before no photo radar because I don't believe it to be an actual deterrent. I agree with Councillor Gramlich and Councillor Hughes on this, that it's a delayed response. The reason why I like option number 3 is that if you reverse engineer the math on the worst year, that is a fine revenue to the town, that would be 209,473.36. As which it would cover both the employee FTE costs, your capital costs, and there would still be funds left to go in reserve.
So to caution, the photo radar can write tickets every couple minutes, where a physical person, it takes a lot longer to do that. So understanding what you're saying, but it's the.
So even
revenue's
at
the-
half,
Yeah.
even if they could, even at less than half, thank you, Councillor Adams, for doing math faster than me. Even at less than half, to me, this covers the cost of it. Now, I know that in all our budget deliberations that the peace officers, our existing peace officers have come in a couple of times, and yourself as well. They're asking for an additional position. They've been asking for an additional position for a while. Now, I understand that one would be focused on traffic, but I think that's where a lot of our complaints come in. So if you're taking away from, so now you have 2 peace officers full-time, one's focusing on the bylaws, and then you have the other focusing on speed. They're not splitting their, they're not having to split their day all the time like that. I actually think we'll see better service. So my preference, hands down, is option 3.
So when CAO Simpson took over, was kind of the direction of getting more time out there on the streets. So we split them up into longer shifts, spread them out over more days to show that,
Increased
it's a very
presence.
positive result where we had 2 peace officers on Saturday, New Spray Park, spent over 5 hours down there visiting with the people, watching the playground zones. They do have photo radar, portable photo radar that they were using. So the messaging was very clear that they were very welcome to be down there, and it was very positive for the community. So those types of things definitely with more bodies on the ground would be a benefit as well.
I think increased presence is very important. That the Councillor Adams and Councillor Randall, I'll get there. I'm trying to watch everyone. An increased presence just makes sense to me. Over the last few weeks, I've gotten multiple messages about safety in our parks, about nighttime activities with regards to, various break-ins across town, people that they don't recognize in town. And I think increasing our peace officer presence is one way that we can assist, essentially assist safety actions in our community, especially with the RCMP at the levels they're at right now. So I like option 3, and now I will be quiet and I will move on.
Okay, my point is, I do like the additional presence. My challenge with it is on the financial side. You're saying it's a cash grab, 100% agree it's a cash grab.
Thank you for saying that.
It pays for the peace officer. It would pay for all the photo radar, additional people. You take the average of the last, whatever was on that sheet, it pays for option 2 and 3 with surplus. So by doing that, we've increased our photo radar for the money piece. It reduces speed. We've added additional peace officers in town for presence and other things, whether or not they're utilizing it for photo radar or for actual other issues that are in town, is there. But we somehow have to pay it. If we just do option 3, the photo radar income on that, I would doubt would even come close to paying what they are, and we're increasing taxes because of it.
Well, I'm okay with that. We almost had a peace officer come in last budgetary thing and I was for it, but we kind of got chopped at the end of it. I think you and I were kind of fighting
We
along
were
for it.
for it.
Yeah. But
What do you do?
the thing is, I just photo radar, and I appreciate that you said that's what it was, because no one ever says it. They say it's for safety. So at least you're saying what it is. It's for money. But part of that is we're going to have money. It might be close to offsetting it, but it's okay not. This isn't a business. We're going to run this like a family. Like if you run it like a business, we're going to close down the pool and the arena. So I appreciate that you said that a lot, Steve, but I'm still for option 3 at this point.
On the map on the ticket wise, if you take the employee and capital costs for option 3 and you divide it by 52 weeks a year, they would only have to ticket out $2,307.69 a week.
So on option 2 and option 3, we want to make sure, like, if that's the route that is chosen or to be looked at, we need to make sure we have accurate costs. These costs were kind of gathered just to put the report together. We would definitely need to be able to, and especially with the camera costs and that things in option 2. So.
Alex or Jeff, as a former police officer, and Julie will joke that I should know because I get tickets, but what the tickets from the photo radar are significantly less than if you got a ticket from a police officer, right? Aren't like those?
No.
They gotta be.
Okay.
Oh, but I mean, but the fine itself is more.
No, the fine is the same.
The fine is,
So the fine is based on a speed limit and how many kilometers over the.
what's the
speed
fine now? Like I seriously,
120.
120. So if you get $120 fine if you're speeding through a place
Well,
in school zone?
For
By a
every
police officer?
kilometer over, there's certain
There is a percentage.
certain
like
different
highway
offenses for different zones or school zones or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah, I think it's
And-
way more.
Construction zones, it's more,
Mhm.
school zones, it's more, and then
Times it's
depending on
double,
your
yeah.
kilometers over the speed.
But
limit.
it's-
Yeah.
It's consistent whether it was an automatic ticket given to you or a police officer given to you.
I'm gonna test that theory on my way to Edmonton tonight.
The difference is when you have a physical person pull you over, you have the ability to discuss what's going on and the ability to see other things as well. right?
That's the main part, like
Yeah.
stick your head in the window.
The thing with, I mean, and I'm not necessarily purporting any of these options, but the thing with going to option 3 or to adding an extra peace officer is, in theory, you should anticipate that everyone's going to abide by the law. So you shouldn't make your decision based on the fact that you think it's going to generate revenue. In fact, option 3 is going to cost you. You should make that decision based on that assumption that you're going to incur costs for the peace officer and you're going to incur costs for the funding to your capital reserves. That's really what option 3 is going to go. Now, if there's enforcement, it happens to be the case, then that's the case. But you should never go into this decision thinking that they're going to write enough tickets and directing them essentially to write enough tickets to.
Then to counter your point, we shouldn't be banking on the photo radar money. to
Shouldn't
fund
be.
our reserves, which
That's
means
right.
the commentary about how much is going into reserves that being lost becomes invalidated. And then we shouldn't be counting on it for our parks maintenance, and that should also be invalidated.
You're
So
exactly right.
neither of those should be budgeted for ever.
Right.
It's very similar
And
to
they
fire
are.
prevention. You hope that you do enough education and prevention that you don't have to go to those. If you do enough
But they are
education and
included in here.
prevention, you
They
should
are
be.
included.
Yeah, they are.
So I think, I agree with your commentary on it. I still am in full support of the peace officer, and I do believe that, you know, in a perfect world, there is no crime and there is no speeding, but you know that there will be tickets that will be issued by the peace officers. Like, it's going to happen. So I don't think it is a full cost to the town. Yeah, Councilor Randall, and then.
Rice needs to play still. He's ready.
Bryce, sorry.
So there's been some comments saying that it's a cash grab, doesn't do anything about safety. I would say the data says differently. The data is clear that it reduces speeds in the areas that it's implemented. I did the math last year when we had the full report in front of us. On average, the photo radar operates 1 hour a day outside of school and playground zones. So for all the people complaining about it being on Highway 88 and Highway 2, it operates on average 1 hour a day in zones outside of playground and school. So, and the trade-off we get for that is people knowing that photo radar could be around. It causes people to lift their right foot, take their foot off their gas. It keeps, I know for me, it helps keep me a little more honest with my speeds when I'm driving down the highway. I know when I'm going through Whitecourt, I know that's photo radarville per se. And so I drive the speed limit. I do not speed because I don't want a ticket there. I'm driving on the Anthony Henday going to the airport and there's that little cement thing that they always hide behind. I slow down going on there. I like to say I'm an average person. And it keeps my speed lower. And I'd say it probably does the same with several other people in the community. We've talked about option 3 as it would be cost offsetting. I would disagree. I bet you it'd come at least a cost of 1% to 1.5% tax increase to the town. If we're looking at getting rid of photo radar, then we need to ask ourselves, okay, what are we going to replace it with? Because speeds will go up. And the safety in the community and playground zones and school zones on Highway 88, on Highway 2 will be diminished. So my thought is to go with option 4. It gives administration time to look at, to explore options 2 and 3. We don't have to make a decision today. If we go with option 3 today, it's going to have an immediate budgetary impact to our operational budget. Option 4 gives us some time and gives time for administration to research things a little further.
Councillor Randall, then Councillor Cramlick.
I have 2 questions for Jeff. With your RCMP background. So first of all, there is a speed sign on Highway 2, nothing to do with photo radar, but it's our sign. And it has been operational for quite some time. Yeah. So do we know why?
We're working on all of them. There is a plan to get them all operational again. We had one damaged over on Highway 88. That one's not working. We are working.
Okay,
That's
why
part
it's
of
still-
as our department as well. So
Okay, so that one's are like,
it's identified and being worked on. Yeah. We're just
Okay.
trying to figure out how to get them fixed. Right.
so it's coming back and once it's operational again?
Yeah, they will be operational. That's the goal, to have them all operational. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, and then I just want your take on this, Jeff, and what option is your favorite with your RCMP background?
Well, I don't.
Doesn't want, you can't say nothing. You have to provide a number.
I think photo radar plays a piece of the puzzle in terms of enforcement and in terms of, ensuring a safe and healthy community. So I think it has a role. Is it the only piece that necessarily is required? No, I think there are multiple pieces. I like the idea of option 3, that it gives more flexibility to our peace officers, but with that comes more scrutiny. And so council needs to be aware that that will come with this option. I've seen it before, where you've had a very enforcement focused bylaw department in a municipality, and it became a very big point of contention. And so I would strongly advise that council needs to be aware of what they're getting into. If you're saying we're going to direct that responsibility to an additional responsibility to our bylaw and enforcement section, that with that will come public scrutiny. And for lack of a better term, lack of ability to necessarily correct that, because that is going to be the mandate of the bylaw service to uphold the law and to enforce the Traffic Safety Act. And shy of you modifying the speed limits or some of those rules, you won't have a lot of impact as to where or how they operate necessarily overall. Right. So I would be okay with option 1. Although option 1, we're seeing a diminishing set of return, but it's really at the end of the day, it's not costing us anything for that service. Option 3 gives us more flexibility as a whole. But there's some caveats I think that you need to understand that come with that.
Councillor Cramlick is next.
Okay, just to respond to you, Bryce, a little bit of can't talk. To accept this thing for another 1 year, we just did that last year and they were going to provide more data and we were going to make a decision. I don't want to keep extending it a year. Like,
Part of the rationale to extend it a year is to keep them honest and make sure the mandate of safety is enforced, so it doesn't turn into a cash thing, right? So they know that, oh, I,
29 PM is 100% a cash grab.
It is.
solution to that, raise your right foot.
But that's Julie's quote.
And I.
You can't do that. But so that's, I don't want to extend it a year no matter what, but like, I do understand that maybe we want to have admin make a better decision. So option 5 is where I would lean to let it expire and then come budget time, revisit this if that's what we're waiting for, the best data. Kimberly.
Okay, so you're saying you like option 5 right now based on where
Well,
everybody's
based
at?
on Bryce saying we need to come up with a better solution decision, I'm not a fan of a 1-year contract, so do that, regroup and come back at budgetary time with what works.
And in the
Okay.
meantime, we have nothing. We're losing a piece of the puzzle for safety, for
Yeah.
traffic safety.
So my question was for Alex. I'm just curious here with the new contract fees, they've like reduced us by half the 10% and increased themselves by 10%. Did they give you a reason why?
Just based on the RFP, just their cost of hiring staff and the equipment costs and things like
Because they
that.
knew we were gonna
Just the inflation
extend it a year.
cost.
But you also said they're not really even here doing it.
They are actively recruiting, so their
Okay.
goal is to have somebody here. They're just in the crunch of what everybody else experienced, and inflation costs have gone up for them. Keeping in mind that the less hours they put here, the return is a bit better for us. So it's based on a scale from 25 to 40 hours a week.
Okay. Okay, I was just
More
curious.
likely to reflect the increased overhead that they're incurring, especially if they're bringing in
Right.
staff for a longer period of time, having to put them up in hotels, as opposed to having Slave Lake potential residents as employees, right?
Okay, thank you.
Counselor
Reflective.
Adams, then Counselor Moellem.
Okay, to say along the lines of what Bryce is saying, option 5, I would be behind, or not option 5, sorry, option 4. I'd be behind option 4 for a 1-year contract, as long as we're bringing this with new numbers to the budget session for 2024 and coming up with a plan then. Run out their contract for the next 6 months after that, and then we're up and ready to go, and we're taking over the next day and running. Like,
You're
doing
saying,
this
you're
now
saying if
is
we have
great.
a plan, like not to come here and negotiate this again and have
Oh.
78 options.
This is basically interim, we're maintaining safety and some line of income as well, but we're maintaining that consistency through for the next year. That gives us 6 months after budget to implement our plan. And then we're taking over the next day and we have all the equipment. We're not doing it by the seat of our pants without having a budget and not running it through.
So I'll interject briefly, and then it was Counselor Moellem. I do like, I'm not a fan of photo radar. I cannot, what frustrates me from the decision that we made the last time is we said, yeah, we're not happy with X, Y, Z on photo radar. And then we didn't do anything about it.
Rules
are
supposed
It's-
change though.
Right, but rules were, okay, rules were supposed to change, things were supposed to happen. I don't think we really saw an improvement in safety out of that year, and we're gonna see less fees. So if there's an actual plan where maybe we're looking at it, I'm more interested about it, but Counselor Moellem can speak now, and then.
Yeah, I think photo radar, you start hearing more photo radar when government funding becomes less and less, and then you start thinking more about photo radar. I think that comes up on the list. I think we're healthy now. It seems like the economy is really good. And I still have trouble believing that photo radar means safety. If I get pulled over by a peace officer and people are passing by, check it in my vehicle to see it. I mean, now I'm really, there's a level of accountability with being that person pulled over on the side of the street while everyone in town passes by and sees my vehicle and sees me
Embarrassment to it, right?
trying to hide in the back or whatever. So I came in supporting number 3. I still feel a high level of support with option number 3. I like seeing them in school zones. If I see them up ahead, then I like not being that person being pulled over in the school zone. But honestly, I like that being able even to have that flexibility where even if we do have a citizens on patrol in the future in our town, to help with that kind of safety as well. If we do have that flexibility, I like to have those peace officers on 7th Street from Roland Michener, even, helping with the people coming from 7th Street and wanting to turn right or turn left and doing a little bit of control after school. I think that gives us a little bit of positive feedback in the community. where people aren't waiting at the back of the line for an hour or for, 20 minutes to get out of there. So I don't know. I still like option number 3. I came in here liking it. I still have a favor to number 3.
Counselor Gramlich, you were next.
No, that's good. That's good. I've talked too much about this. It's just gonna be similar stuff louder or something, If I talk louder, you might listen more.
Counselor Hughes.
I agree with Councillor Moellem as well. I think right now I've been a little bit torn, but I think I would lead towards option number 3 at this point in time too. I understand there is going to be a cost that could be associated with that, but I guess I would kind of ask council, what is the cost for keeping the community safe and for that, peace officer presence, et cetera? I think we've heard pretty loud and clear, or at least I personally have from many residents about safety of their children, about safety in the community. So I guess that would be kind of my overarching thing as well that kind of does tie into this. Feel free to go, Councillor Adams.
You got to be prepared to back that at the next budget. We brought this in the last 2 budgets. This was brought in and shot down twice. And now we're sitting here at the table saying, oh, we should do this. It needs to be spent. I think that it's insane that how all of a sudden were we not willing to spend an extra 1% in taxes? And now all of a sudden at a table after one presentation, we're willing to go up 1%.
I was
That's
willing to
crazy.
spend it at one point. Well, me and you were the last 2.
I wasn't at the
But
I'm just talking in general.
But the,
It's been shot down the
I
last
think-
2 years.
I think this is giving it an extra purpose, right? For like, I was willing to last time, Steve, until we got like so tight. That was a crazy budget, but that was
Yeah.
crazy. But I think this is giving it's putting a job in front of us. Like, I think everyone's seeing like, okay, this person has a use. I think that's, maybe I'm speaking for them because I was with you till the end.
Already at a 5.66% tax increase for 2024. This would add on over 1%. That put us on the cusp of 7%.
And remove the revenue from.
That doesn't, you don't see that revenue though, like
Although
that.
we were at a surplus during the past year.
Later you will, you'll have to, I know, but you don't.
It's not part of our operational budget.
But we have to make that up into our capital, so it comes off our operation.
And we'd probably do less on parks, but I mean, if you guys can live with a 7% tax increase.
Well, there's other things you
I-
can cut and change.
As I stated earlier in the meeting, I don't like making large budgetary decisions outside of budget time.
Oh, I
We
agree.
do have an option to get us through until administration comes through with costs. That's option 4, keep status quo for now. I'm not opposed to getting rid of photo radar. I just want to see the complete plan instead of, well, let's just throw this out here and then we live with the consequences later.
Right, that's fair, but I think that this is the similar sales pitch, but now we're attaching budget to it like this. We're doing the same thing. Steve, go. I'll take
I want to make a motion.
I'm on.
I move that council directs administration proceed with option 4 for automated photo radar enforcement. And then we'll bring it back at budget for the rest of us.
Okay, well, that's your I thought your motion was gonna be if we did our own.
No, I want this whole thing to be brought back at budget and we'll discuss
Okay,
our
so I'm doing
plans
that.
going forward. That's why I only want option 4 for 1 year. Do I have to clarify that? 1
That's
year?
1 year.
No, that's what we did last year, though.
No,
No,
and
we didn't bring.
the only
like-
caveat that I'll say is their RFP was for a 3-year contract. They said they were open to negotiation for anything less than that. So a 1-year contract may
Okay,
not be,
Explore a 1 year contract.
we can explore a
Maybe
1-year
that.
contract.
Forward calls then to look at options 2 and 3, investigate and bring back more detailed numbers.
I get my options mixed up.
No, that's good.
No, I think you're.
Okay, there is a motion on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Call to question those in favor.
I could support it.
Those opposed? And that is carried.
Craziness. The exact same thing as last year.
No, it's not. Last year, we said we were delaying.
Whoa. Order in the not court. Hold on. Just hold on a minute. I would also like to make a motion outside of that this report comes back at budget time with numbers. So whatever the management task list is, we didn't have this come back last year. So I am making an official motion
Yeah.
for this report on the defeat of the previous, or on the passing of the previous motion. This needs to come back with actual numbers, specifically with option 3.
And 2,
Is there any further discussion?
and option 2.
Call to question, sure, option 2 as well. Call to question, those in favor.
Mhm.
Okay, and that is carried. Let's move on then. Jeffrey,
Hey, your last report before NAS. So this is authorization for administration to negotiate. So the purpose of this report is to obtain authorization from council to negotiate a payment plan related to offsite levies. Background: on May 16th, 2023, Murray Broadhead had appeared as a delegation before council requesting the forgiveness of $285,363 in offsite levies associated to his property located at Plan 0823419 Block 1 Lot 4. As a result, council approved the following motion. Move that council direct administration to advise Mr. Broadhead in writing that the offsite levies in the amount of $285,363 for Plan 0823419 Block 1 Lot 4 must be paid immediately, or the town will pursue legal action under default sections of the development agreement dated May 5th, 2017. Since the motion on May 16th, 2023 was completed, administration's been in discussions with Mr. Broadhead in an effort to find alternative methods that would ensure the full payment of offsite levies outstanding were collected by the town, while allowing Mr. Broadhead the opportunity to explore future development on this parcel of land. As a result, arrangements have been agreed to in principle, resulting in the collection of $165,363 on Friday, June the 2nd, and 12 future post-dated checks for $10,000 each for the remainder of the $120,000 outstanding, payable on the 1st of every month. Council has two options before you to authorize: number one, to authorize administration to enter into a formal agreement as agreed to in principle as outlined above, or to not authorize administration to enter into the arrangement with Mr. Broadhead and advise him accordingly that the full amount is due immediately and proceed to collection should there be any further delay. Recommendation to council is to authorize administration to negotiate terms relating to the payment of the offsite levies.
Councillor Wallen,
I'll make the motion to authorize administration to negotiate terms relating to the payment of offsite levies. Oh, sorry, that council authorize administration to complete negotiations with Murray Broadhead for Plan 0823419 Block 1 Lot 4 to arrange for the collection of all outstanding offsite levies.
okay, there is a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. All those opposed, and that is carried. Next up, we have correspondence on residential street parking.
All right, so before you have a letter received from Catherine Adams dated May 26, 2023. I won't read the contents of the letter to you. I'm assuming council's had an opportunity to present or to review it. And it's just filed for your information and any or motions that you may direct as a result.
Councillor Adams.
I'm a little confused as to the content of the letter. It's referring to double parking, and then at the end, it's asking for only one side of the street parking. So it's two different things. Anybody else?
I was
have a better
confused. I thought
understanding of
double
that?
parked meant like
Both on one side.
both on one side, like or whenever you go to a concert or something like that, and like someone parks you in.
I think the term was used
On both
incorrectly.
sides.
She means both sides of the
Yeah.
roads are
That's
being
what I
parked.
That's
gathered.
what she's referring
Like,
to.
yeah,
Okay.
that's the spirit.
I
behind the
do
thing.
not understand how we could possibly entertain removing 50% of the parking in the town of Sliveway.
I also agree with that.
I don't get it. In dangerous zones and narrow streets, I understand it. They've already had the parking removed. You take Springwood, for example, although nobody obeys that one. It's no parking
Now the
on
peace
two of the
officer
streets
could
on
assist
7th
that.
Street and in Springwood. So,
I'm sorry.
I,
Councillor Wallen.
oh. Wasn't done.
I love the idea. I love the idea. I don't know if we can. I mean, most households have 2 to 3 vehicles, probably, I think. I don't know where you would put those vehicles. There is 3 streets in town, 9th, 10th, and 11th Street Southeast. They're awful to go through. I don't know where you would put, even when there is parking on both sides. I have no idea what that would look like on those 3 streets when, or even the street I used to live on, 7th Street Southwest as well, where it was just total congestion. I have no idea where you put vehicles. I think if it's surrounding safety and congestion, I'd rather see some rules maybe around parking trailers and campers on the roadway.
those exist.
Those do already exist.
Are they enforced though?
Yeah, we have.
We had an extra peace officer, we get her done.
Okay.
Steve,
Falling apart.
just thought I did interrupt him for Councillor Wallam's comment. So Steve.
Right mid-sentence. I was gonna say much the same lines as you, but also on 13th Avenue and 12th Avenue in the southeast. I don't know how by removing, because most of those older houses don't have driveways. So if we're removing the parking on one side in order to make it so you can travel traffic both ways, I'm more about go slow, have enforcement, and if we open it up, it's just gonna make people drive faster. Look at 6th Avenue and look at 13th Street and 12th Street and 11th Avenue. Like,
The no
they're
parking.
crazy.
Yeah.
Think of all the fine revenue you'll be receiving.
Good point.
We take an
pay for that
education
extra
pros
piece.
first, remember?
I understand. Sorry, go Kim.
No,
Thought
you
you were pointing
go
at me.
ahead.
It was Councillor Hughes. and
I
then-
was just gonna say, like, I can appreciate this resident's feedback and her understanding for safety for sure. But I can't come up with a solution. And yeah, it just doesn't seem right to not tell people they cannot park in front of their, yeah, some people don't have driveways. What about residents that might have accessibility issues? Like, there's all sorts of things that this kind of opens up. I just don't think it's something we can reasonably enforce, in my opinion, either. But I relate and I understand to what she's saying. Certainly, perhaps a third peace officer could help in the future.
I would like to
So
see.
Graham,
Ali, you kind of identified the streets that are, if you drive around looking at it, there shouldn't be parking on both sides because you gotta wait for someone to come. So again, and I don't have the solution, but maybe admin could look into something, or maybe we think there's no solution, but we gotta be more creative than, hey, they have a small driveway and 6 vehicles, like, maybe they have to find an option. Like, it's something we should maybe take a little bit more serious and look at, because those streets, the ones you're identifying, are horrible.
They're absolutely horrible. And I think if we're looking at new developments in the future, lots are only going to get smaller and smaller. They're not getting bigger and bigger. So
Like, some of those streets are smaller than Springwoods. Do you know what I mean? Like, seems quite a bit smaller. Maybe it's because there's
everything's.
parking.
But you've got slow traffic when it's like that. People naturally slow down. Speed limit's 50. Is anybody going 50 down that road? No. So it's a natural barrier to speed. So is it making it more unsafe by having people drive 10 to 15 kilometers an hour? Like, I don't know. It's much the same as the theory behind when we ripped out our boulevards and we ripped out our trees and we pushed the sidewalks to the streets, we opened up that lane of vision for everybody. So instead of doing 30 to 40 kilometers in a residential top speed, we're now hitting 50 minimum speed. Like, look at 13th Street when you're driving down that, you can just fly because you can see wide open. You look at the northeast where they still have, I think there's a couple streets there that still have the boulevard with the trees and it all overgrows. People naturally drive slower. So having the traffic there, I don't know if it's necessary, or the cars there is necessarily horrible,
Might I
not
suggest
ideal.
that we bring back this discussion as part of the larger discussion that we're going to be having regarding speed zones?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that we don't lose it, we don't lose the concern, because it is a concern. I think the outright request to remove the parking on both sides of the streets personally isn't feasible, but I think what we can do is add this consideration
Yeah.
to the list with the speed zones.
And even follow up with, Alex is gone now, but our safety guys, maybe it's a concern for them getting emergency vehicles down there, right? And it could be, I don't know if it is.
I think and I think including that as part of the larger discussion. If I'll make a motion to accept this as information, as well as if we can, Jeff, can you contact Catherine and just let her know that we had discussed it during this meeting and that we're going to be tabling it to the future meeting with regards to the larger picture of speed zones. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried. Question period. Do we have any questions? Kim, Councillor Hughes, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Okay, so I have a question, well, more of a statement following with a question. So May was a very busy month for the town of Slave Lake, obviously hosting a lot of evacuees. It was a lot of stress, very high pressure. Everybody really did a fabulous job and really pulled together. So I just wanted to say a thank you because May was very, very crazy and very stressful. So thanks to everyone involved. On that note, I am curious, has admin kind of entertained the idea of doing sort of like a review on our policies and procedures following that? Just because I know we have new staffing, even yourself as CAO, this was kind of the first time. Do we have anything set in place so that we can kind of review what we've done, what worked, what didn't work, and essentially just to, you know, grow and make ourselves better before next fire season when we're, you know, all of a sudden in a panic again? So just a thought I had and kind of a question for you, Jeff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's on the agenda.
Okay.
So it is to schedule basically like a debrief after after a major incident.
Okay.
I don't know if it'll be before the end of June here or not, but it was discussed at SLT and it is on our management.
Oh,
agenda
wonderful.
to look
Okay.
at. Yeah.
So will that debrief be brought back to council?
Or maybe a summary could be
A
potentially.
summary of it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would just be kind of curious to know. I think there's always obviously room for improvements with everything that we do. And so I'd be curious to know kind of how it went and where we can go from here. And I think just maybe making sure everyone does have, you know, proper training and everyone is very in the know so that we can, you know, if we have to execute this again, which I'm sure we will at some point in the future, that we do the best job possible. That was my only thought. So, but it sounds like you're on it. Great. Thank you.
Councilor Brando.
More of a comment. When you are coming off of 7th Street, turning onto 6th Avenue in the southeast. I'm
gonna need like a tree landmark or like a house color.
yeah, 7th Street is the high school.
Okay,
So I'm turning onto 6th Ave towards Tags.
thank you.
Okay.
Turning
when-
right.
Well,
Not the
either
slow- or
direct.
turning west, whatever.
Directionally challenged. Got it.
When you're sitting at that intersection, you can't look left because of the town trees. It inhibits traffic. I have to creep out into the street. And because this is already a contentious intersection, I was wondering if maybe we can attend to the trees.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Election time when big signs were put on corners of the street and it was kind of the same
Some crazy ones there.
same kind of discussion where people had to almost go into the middle of the street to look past the electoral signs.
Hmm.
Are there restrictions on where
I
you can
don't know
put
the
signs?
answer
And-
for our municipality. I haven't looked at that bylaw or that policy, but there typically are. There are
Yeah.
typically restrictions or bylaws for different municipalities as it relates to signage and signage on government or on public roads, right? I can bring back some information if you have, or
Well,
forward that if you
I
like.
understand where
I'm just not sure what we have.
you
currently
can
in
and can't
place.
put it. I just want to see like, you know, if what the amount of distance from a stop sign or from you know.
I'll take a look and see what's present and bring that back for you. I'm not
That'd be
sure
great.
what the answer
Okay.
is.
Thank you.
Any further questions? As I see none, we will move into the state of the lake. Does anyone have anything they would like?
I do.
Councilor Moyle.
Yep. I would like to say congratulations to the Northern Lakes College and the St. Francis of Assisi students that graduated this weekend. And remind them all that Slave Lake is a great place to continue your education, a great place to work, a great place to start a business, and a great place to start a family.
Well, that was very well written. I was going to just say congratulations to our newly elected MLA Scott Sinclair. We look forward to building a strong relationship between our council and the provincial government over the next term. I also wanted to just say thank you to the Canettes for another year of the hanging baskets that are coming out on our main street and that they always brighten up our town. And I'm just very excited about the grand opening of the Tamarack Valley Splash Park in the southeast. There was a great turnout for the grand opening. And I know this has been something that our council and the previous council have heard about, wanting more amenities in the summer and in a different area of town. So I'm really thrilled to have that. If you want to include.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to give a shout out to the Slave Lake Volleyball Club, the Storm, and their inaugural year. They competed at nationals for girls U18 in Calgary in May. We're proud to have two employees who currently work for the town, Sydney Swashbuckler Simpson and Ellie Friesen, also coached by our very own CAO, Jeff Simpson. So the club is looking to expand next year and fielding additional teams in both girls and boys categories. Sydney loves pirates, just so everyone knows.
With that, I would entertain a motion to go in closed session. Counselor Hughes.
Closed.
All right, all those in favor? And that is carried.
should- Right, we'll go some block.
We're live. Counselor Atkins.
Okay, we're back in session.
We're in? Okay.
Counselor Atkins.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, any further discussion?
Just kidding.
Call the question, those in favor. And that is carried.
Yeah.
It's, I think he,
You just said that.
explanation and